I've always been of the impression that people feel an inadequacy or something in their own personal life or self, so they feel like they have this really nice, souped-up car. It'll give them more value or make them more attractive to women or whoever.
Oh my god.
Stop this!
Alright, it's been a little while, but hopefully you guys are doing alright. Consider this consider this as a tune-up. There'll probably be actually quite a few of these before I get back into the actual snort report itself. I might actually rename this. I used to call it the pseudo snort report. I might call it something else now. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But either which way, hopefully you guys are all doing well. Let's go ahead and get into the situation. Should be fun. And like I said, it's a bit of a tune-up, so we'll see how bad I botch it. Hopefully not too bad, but I'm sure the editor can fix wherever I screw up. So we'll see how that all works out. But big ups to all of you guys. And let's go ahead and get the party started. Let's stop all the talking and get to the talking. See you guys in a minute.
Hold on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Hate Army Watch. DSP can't get trolls and the cult of hate out of his mind. This is from March 20th of 2022. The link will be down in the description. Sorry, we're already messing up already. But before all the fun stuff, I want you to take a look at this sequence real quick. I'll be right back. Now, I'm sure that just seems like an average day in Goutopia for DSP, but I want you to kind of see the pain that's on his face. Because clearly, and this is, it's been a theory, but clearly he has issues. He has physical issues with him. I want you to see exactly what kind of agony this man is in. And all by his own doing, he's put himself in his own perpetual hell. He deserves everything he got, but still, and everything he's going to get. But I think you should still just see it one more time.
Hold on.
That looked painful. That looked painful as hell. It really did. And it's funny that someone who has cut himself off from the world and only has human interaction with one person, which is pretty much Catherine. You could say his hairdresser, but essentially it's really just Catherine. You would think if you maybe, I don't know, went outside, interacted with people, got some exercise, actually eat right, I don't know, just get some sun, it would do you wonders. But it's funny, as he speaks about him now being 40 and he can't do so much and everything like that. I'm jumping ahead a little bit because his birthday was actually in April. But as he talks about now that he's 40 and he can't do much and he has to kind of shift his content to kind of suit what he is physically capable of, it sounds like 40 going on like 80. Like, he already sounds like he has like one foot in the grave. If you kind of think about it, he sounds like his life is almost over, and this is what he wants to do, spending his remaining days, which is rather sad. But yet again, I pose the question to you: who's jealous of this? Like, who's envious of this? You know what I'm saying? Someone who has been a perpetual failure his entire life, someone who has said on many occasions, but mainly when he mainly said it was the most pathetic, that if it wasn't for YouTube, he wouldn't have anything. He wouldn't feel like he had any self-worth. Who would be jealous of someone who has done so little? That makes no sense. DSP has no type of real impact on anything that he cares about. Media, pop culture, gaming, nothing. He has no impact on anything. The fact that he lingers around, he's really... I've called him a cancer at one time or another, and I still stand by that. I still stand by that. He's in remission. He's just like, he's that little bit of cancer cells that are still left that they just can't really get rid of, but at the same time, he's not a threat anymore. You know what I'm saying? In his earlier days, he may or may not have been something or somebody, but those days are long gone, and all by his own doing, by the way. So what is he now? He just lingers around like an unpaid phone bill, like a pair of dirty socks that he won't pick up off the floor, and now the smell has seeped into the carpet. He's the empty food boxes that have been left in the garage for weeks on end, and it stunk the whole house up. That's all he is. That's all his legacy really is. That's all that he has actually contributed, not to just life in general, but to his existence. That's all he really is. He's just lingering. And the funny part, and rather sad part too, is he knows it. He knows it. He knows that he doesn't have anything to offer anymore. You know what I mean? Like, in the bigger picture, I'm not talking about the people who throw him money every day and all the nonsense that entails. I'm not talking about the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about someone who has spent 14 years, give or take, of his life online, who has made over $2 million in his time doing this and has not a goddamn thing to show for it and has nothing to look back at and say, I'm proud of this. Not a damn thing. At the end of the day, the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics will be the ones who will write his legacy and will be remembered, not him. DSP is no longer a content creator. He has become the content.
Yuck. Yuck.
I like how he tilted his head into the mic for that last grunt, you know what I'm saying, before he said yuck. Kind of like, oh, I have to suffer through this, so you guys have to suffer through it too. He could have muted the mic. Literally, it's just a second. But, you know, that's too hard, I guess.
Okay. So Zoya did a super chat and saying, why do so many people want to see you suffer? Alright. Now here's the thing, Zoya. I actually think that this mentality that everyone wants to see Phil suffer is actually not exactly what you're thinking, but there is two distinct groups of people, okay? Excuse me. Because I actually feel that there's three groups of people who watch my content, okay? First of all, there's a group
okay, I like how we went from there's two distinct groups of people, and then he grunts again, and then all of a sudden it's three. Okay, whatever. Sure, no problem. To Zoya, whoever it was, the reason why DSP... I mean, every person's different, clearly. But one of the main reasons why DSP... people take some type of... I wouldn't say pleasure, but they enjoy seeing him suffer, is because it's the only thing that he does that's amusing. It's the only thing that happens to him or around him that's entertaining. There's nothing else that he provides that is considered substance, that is considered digestible, that is considered satisfying. And for someone who has spent all of his quote-unquote career wishing bad on other content creators who he felt didn't deserve to have what they had, game publishers, game developers, just anybody and everybody who was ever anything more than what he was, or whoever went against anything that he said, and all the things that he wished upon them, it's all come back to him later. That's really what it comes down to. You reap what you sow. And if you if all you do is instill hate into the world or into your content or into your community or whatever the case may be, that's all you're going to ever get back. Basically. That's all and that's essentially what it is. DSP has taken quite a bit of morbid glee at watching people who were more successful than him, or watching companies or groups of people and companies that he feels that have somehow slighted him or have done him wrong in the past, seeing them fall. I can give you a bunch of different examples, but I guess the first two I'll give you is Blip TV when they finally went down, and Machinima when they went down, and how he basically did his victory laps on Twitter and his victorious snorts, saying that he was glad that, in Machinima's case, he was glad that Machinima went down, he was glad that people lost their jobs, and fuck him. They fucked him over, so he now is glad that that they're being screwed over and all these people being unemployed. When people on Twitter called him out for, hey, first off, the people who may or may not have fired you might not even be there. So now you're wishing failure and you're wishing unemployment on a group of people who don't even know who the fuck you are. What the hell is wrong with you? These people have families. These people have kids. It's things like that. Did you think about that? No, you didn't. You just wanted to sit there and have your own little bitch way and whatnot, and you wanted to be angry just to be angry, despite the fact that he had been removed from the company by, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it was at that time, if it was even that long. And because he holds grudges against anything and everybody, it makes it even more sweeter when it comes back on him, to be honest. Because a lot of what he does is just petty, for the sake of being petty. And he has really nothing else to offer. His malice is probably his biggest selling point, to be honest with you. His toxic behavior, his toxic existence as a human being is the only thing about him that's actually marketable, outside of his gullibility. But, you know, that's if you want to ignore all of the bank leaks and the bankruptcy and all that nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Clearly, the guy has obvious issues and shit that he's not man enough to address. And why should he? Why should he address any of his addictions and any other problems that he's had in the past, in the present, or in the future? He's always been rewarded by being allowed to keep doing it. And yet again, him being a bitch on Twitter or on his pre-streams or pre-stream podcasts or whatever that nonsense is, the fact that he is somehow still rewarded in some way, shape, or form for spreading that type of negativity is, and you know, it's been profitable to an extent. Why would he stop? But to make a long story incredibly short, the reason why people take glee in his nonsense and seeing him suffer is because he's wished that same suffering on other people. And he can sit there and say, I didn't really mean it. You guys took me too seriously, yada, 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 yada. But in truth, if you know who Phil Burnell is, if you get past his fake-ass Stone Cold Steve Austin personality with Darkside Phil, if you get past his lame-ass attempt of CM Punk with DSP, and you look at the man, and I use that term loosely, you look at the man, Phil Burnell, he's nothing more than a spoiled, resentful, hateful little creature. And it's all he's ever been, it's all he ever will be. And it was okay when he could do that to everybody else. But then when it comes to him, when it's time to pay the piper, everybody else is wrong. Everybody else is in the fault. Everybody else is mentally ill and sick. Why would you want to do that to me? I never did anything to any of you guys. Yeah, I may have said some fucked up things here or there, whatever, whatever. Well, how does that hurt you? How does that bother you? It doesn't make any sense, dude. Make of that what you want.
People who enjoy just watching me play anything and enjoy just chilling with me. These are the people that will come by for the chill streams like Skyrim. Alright? They don't care that there's no high level of challenge. It's not about progression in a game. It's not about getting good or overcoming anything. It's literally just have some chill time with Phil. Have some fun conversation. Enjoy the gameplay as it happens.
I don't know, it kind of makes you sound like a poser. If that's the case, by the way, why even bother playing games for the night streams? Why not just go ahead and have, what does he call those pathetic attempts at trying to communicate or trying to make build a connection between himself and the audience? Oh, those impromptu Q&As. Why not he just do those at night? Matter of fact, the daily rap is unnecessary. It's actually kind of useless, but it's always been useless. Because if he's not going to do weekend previews, then why the fuck are we doing daily raps? Anyway, he should just go ahead and eliminate the night stream altogether, or just turn the night stream into a Q&A. And they could actually talk about, I don't know, gaming news. They could actually be talking about pop culture. They could be talking to him about all the things that he knows nothing about, despite the fact that he's at home and online all fucking day, and would have all the time and resources available to him to do such things, but he won't because he's lazy. He has to be handheld through conversations because he don't do anything. He don't know anything. Listen to the bullshit that him and Catherine do every week. It's nothing. It's pay bills, pay bills, pay bills, go out shopping, go out to eat, 3 times that day, or have 3 different situations or 3 different instances of having DoorDash delivered to them, and they just sit around all day and that's it. They do nothing. That's not spending time with people or with your wife. That's you vegetating. And you can see it in his mental faculties. They've fallen apart. I mean, not that he was very, very sharp anyway or astute, but like he's completely fallen apart mentally. And he knows it. And that's why he needs to do less and less and less. And it's ironic in a lot of ways too, because him getting older, you can tell that he is not comfortable with it, or it's not settling in well with him. And because of that, I would assume there's a lot happening to him when he's off camera mentally, like he's forgetting stuff, or he's having a harder and harder time remembering things, or he's having a harder and harder time keeping up with like the small stuff. And I think it's starting to scare him. I think it's starting to scare him a lot. And that's why now that he's trying to go back and do these retrospectives, or he's trying to debunk, or he's trying to rewrite his history, it's all coming off in a lot of ways, at least from what I've seen, like he can barely remember the original lie. Like the lie that he's trying to put out there, that he's trying to debunk, sounds as ill-conceived and not even well put together. I don't think he remembers 80% of some of the shit that he said. I think he knows that. And I think that's why he spends the majority of his nights going through and watching his videos for this whole react nonsense he's trying to pull. Because he can't remember anything. I think it's slowly but surely leaving him. And as your mental faculties leave you or start to dissipate, you can kind of see how that manifests physically. But, you know, that's just my thought process on it.
See what I'm saying? It's different. It's a different kind of content creation. There's a lot of content creators out here who literally that's all that they have as a fan base. People who like their personality and their attitude and their mentality so much, they don't even care what they're doing. They'll watch them play a game. They'll watch them cook a meal. They'll watch them take a shit. Doesn't matter. They just like the person so much, it's considered chill streaming. Okay?
No, it's not.
There's a lot
you have a very shallow outlook on what content creation is or content creators, which is funny because when DSP looks at other content creators, unless they serve a purpose, meaning that he's using them for a guide so he doesn't get humiliated and this is how you don't play, or if he's trying to get his news from somewhere else besides Twitter, which I'm surmising he's doing so because I think he doesn't have the patience to sit on Twitter and actually read through shit anymore, or at least not with the type of precision that he probably should, and which is kind of funny having precision and a lazy person in the same sentence, but whatever. Other than that, he's really just looking at these streamers and the amount of money that they make. He did the same thing on Twitch too. He did the exact same thing on Twitch. He only sees the money that they make. It's like turning on an Alinity stream back in like 2017, 2016 or whatever, and you seeing a bunch of cucks giving her money just for the sake of doing it. And he has the mental imprint in his head that that's all streamers do and they make all this money and they're multimillionaires and shit. When in actuality, a lot of those people are more than just invested fans who just sit around and just praise the ground that these people walk on, right? Or they like everything that they do. There has to be more there. If not, you're going to eventually get bored. Or you end up falling into the DSP phase, as I like to call it. And most of those people who follow DSP as fans, I should say, are so alienated, right? And have been grind or dwindled down or reduced, if you will, down to the lowest common denominator that they can't go anywhere else. Like they have been diluted so much as people or as personalities, if you will, on the internet that they don't know how to interact with regular people anymore. They only know how to interact with pieces of garbage like themselves. They really can't go anywhere else and start over, or they're too scared to, which is what DSP has always advocated anyway. He never wanted people to go out and expand their horizons and watch other content creators and then bring those experiences and those insights back to him and try to actually build a community, because that's how a community is built. It's not by you watching just one fucking person and taking everything they say as the gospel and that's it. That just leads to stagnation. You have to watch multiple people. You have to get more better insights or a better understanding of what people are doing, not just the games that they're playing, but the people who interact with them. That's how you make the content creators that you like better. DSP has never wanted that. He's always wanted to have his own little bubble, and he's wanted the people who watch him to only be in their own bubbles as well. It leaves less chance of them criticizing him or demanding him to do anything that he doesn't want to do, that he's not comfortable with doing, or he just doesn't know how to do, and he's too scared or stupid to ask for help. One cannot demand anything from you if they have been conditioned to believe nothing else is out there. And that's why he shitted on other content creators. And that's the reason why no other content creators want to deal with him. And he spent a better part of a decade shitting on all of them for no good reason, with little to any real benefit. Look at where they are at compared to DSP. DSP still has day one idiots who follow him because they really have no choice. Those people have moved on to bigger and better things, have larger audiences, who have more diverse audiences, and we're able to actually obtain something. Even if they're not going to be remembered, They actually walked out of the game with something. DSP's never going to have anything. He's going to be one of those people who's going to he's literally going to have to do this till the day he dies. Because he doesn't believe in saving. He doesn't believe in investing in himself. He doesn't believe in investing in his community. He just wants to clock in every day and be paid by the hour, like a worker. That's not a boss. He's an hourly employee, and that's how he's treated this shit. And ad revenue was his hourly pay. And once that was taken away, he had to go over there to Twitch and basically beg, but he was begging when he was on YouTube anyway. But he has to basically go to Twitch and beg. He's completely humiliated himself over those 5 years, and he has nothing to show for it. And then what did Twitch do with him? Just what detractors, trolls, haters, and critics said that they would do. When they got tired of him, when he became too much of a liability, or whatever the case may be, they booted him off. DSP looks at it as, wait, I gave you guys 5 years. They sit there and look at it as, you know, to you it was 5 years, but to us, it was Tuesday.
Content creators who actually succeed like that, and I do believe that I do have this is really pissing me off today. Anyway, I do really believe that I have a group of people who enjoy that content. If not, we would never have a late night chill stream that made sense. I'd have 2 people on them, right? Right. Now, there's another group of people that are not of that mentality. There's a group of people, and I would argue that this group of people might have actually been some of my longer time viewers, because they remember back to a time when I used to play every major game, and I used to rush through every major game. And for me, it was all about beating the games as quickly as humanly possible and getting that content out on the internet. It was definitely a different era. It was not the live streaming era. It was get that playthrough out and get those day one views, yada, yada, yada. All right?
No, let's go ahead and look closer at that. It's not yada, yada, yada. He decided to prioritize quantity over quality. And he was able to get away with that for probably a year or two until people realized, or people decided that, hey, there's a better way of doing this. And it can be more entertaining for everybody, and it can be more meaningful. Instead of going for, as this cuck just said, get day one views, right? Because that's all that was important. People were looking at, hey, can we get 100,000 views on this over a period of time? You know what I'm saying? Can we even, you know, maybe even get 1 million views over this? Possibly. Can we have a little more than our 5,000 or 10,000 views on a playthrough? Or not even on a playthrough, but on a video. And have something more than some drunk idiot basically slurring his words, right? And in a lot of ways, purposely wasting people's time with these 10 or 15 minute videos that led to a whole lot of nothing. That's the reason why, if historically speaking, if you look at the first 5 or even 10 parts of a playthrough, and then the last 5 parts of the playthrough, those are where all the views are at. Everything in the middle is garbage, and it didn't take long for people to figure that out. It really didn't. And because there was no substance there, right, people gravitated away from him, on top of his shitty attitude and everything else. That's what it came down to. But he thought it was a successful way of going about it because he was able to get popular early on with it. He didn't look at, well, what am I going to do in the future? It's all about, what am I going to do right now? And you see how that mentality has, well, led him to where he's at right now and where it's going to lead him to in the future. It's amazing how someone who has no plan, no conceivable plan, I should say, and has no real skills or talent, was able to make it as far as he did. And that's something that John and Howard have both said. You have to give him a lot of credit on how far he was able to make it, right? Getting there is one thing, keeping it's another. And he didn't have a plan for any of that at all. And DSP likes to spew this bullshit about, I never had plans to make money. I never, had any idea of turning this to a job or career. I fell into it. No, when you got fired from that job that you knew you were going to get fired from, right? Because there was if you listen to the original video, he admitted that this was a long time coming and he knew something was going to happen, but he hoped daddy was going to bail his ass out. If, as I'm sure his parents always have. Which is what most parents do. if he had what he should have done is taken the L and immediately looked for another job. Instead, what he did was he cashed out his 401k, he spent his severance package, and immediately went to Blip. Oh, and of course he was getting a stipend from mommy and daddy. And he tried to go ahead and do this. Went to Blip, got kicked off of Blip for being lost his AdSense on YouTube, runs the Blip, gets kicked off of Blip, comes back to YouTube, cucks around for a little while, and then begs Hutch for a job, and then that's how he ended up getting into Machinima. And then was hoping to ride Machinima out essentially for the rest of his life. He thought Machinima was always going to be there, which is another fundamental instance of Darkside Phil being an idiot on multiple occasions for multiple reasons, is that he doesn't understand change. It doesn't make any sense to him. He wants everything to be consistent forever. Consistency in a lot of ways can only usually leads to stagnation. You have to change. Everybody does, fundamentally, in some way, shape, or form. You are not selling out, or you are not doing yourself a disservice by changing. You're doing that to survive. And on a platform, or in a median, or in a field as that of entertainment, content creation, streaming, or whatever the case may be, the new thing is changing every day. Do you have to jump on every fad or every trend? No. Do you still have to change? Do you still have to produce something better to draw new people in? Yes. And he's never understood that. And then this whole concept that he's had for a number of years, that, hey, I'm here every day, pay me. If you want that, if you have that type of mentality, Phil, get a job. I'm sorry, just go out and get a job. If you want that type of mentality. If you are there to produce content, good content, and be a decent human being, if you even knew what the fuck that was, and actually willing to treat people the way you want to be treated, then that's what you do. Are you going to get paid for that on Monday? No, maybe not. Are you going to get paid for that on Tuesday? No, maybe not. Will you probably get something on Wednesday? Maybe. Will you get something on Thursday, Friday? Probably. But to demand money from people every single day just because you showed up, if you have that mentality, and get a job. Like, go out and get a fucking job if that's what your case is. If not, be grateful. Your focus should be on putting out good content. And if the contributions and everything else comes your way, then it does. Period. People will appreciate people who actually try. Let me give you an example that I'm sure all of you have seen. You ever been on the highway, for example, and you see someone who's pulled over, and you see how if they're just stuck in their car, if they're in their car, for example, and they're just on their cell phone or whatever, you don't see too many people willing to, even especially during the day, you don't see too many people willing to pull over to see if they're okay or whatever the case may be. Yeah, I'm sure you have a few people, but not as many as you would think. But if you have an individual who is actually out there trying to change that tire, or is under their hood and actually trying to figure out what the problem is, you are more inclined to see people actually pull over and try to help them. Because people respect other people who put in effort. You know what I'm saying? Any person who is willing to try, people are there to help you. If not, then they see no reason to. If you're not willing to help yourself, then why would anybody else want to help you? And yet again, there are those situations where people are just incredibly charitable, right? But those are the very people that people like DSP have preyed on his entire life.
Then, okay, to see me play an ultra difficult game was a rare treat. Because if I played an ultra difficult game, well, here's someone who's trying to beat that game as fast as he can, and he's getting his ass beat, and it's funny as shit to see me rage and get pissed that there's a difficulty spike in a game, or to hit a wall in a game and I can't get past it, and to die to a boss again and again and again and again and again. And I feel like that's why when I originally played the original Dark Souls 1 and I had no idea what I was getting into, that's why that is still one of the most infamous and most well-known playthroughs I've done, because of my reactions, because of the fact that the game defeated me and I gave up on it, right? And I agree with you.
The game didn't defeat you. You let yourself be defeated, if anything else. And more importantly, a game can't beat you. You can only beat yourself. And that's what really happened. The fact that you can say that a game beat you, right, and you gave up on it, shows more. It tells more about you than the actual game itself, honestly. And even though FromSoft games are meant to basically be soul shattering, right? If you enjoy the challenge, if you enjoy the thrill, if you will, you'll continue at it. But DSP's never been about that life. Go back and look at the FGC. Excuse me. Look at the FGC, for example. I'm still getting over a cold. He's never been big on competition, ever. And especially when you look at the Street Fighter 4 era. When you get into that situation, you got all these people who are not, basically all these new faces, right? These people who are not well known or whatever the case may be. And they're coming in and they're dominating tournaments and they're making names for themselves. People like DSP, mainly DSP, but there were some other names out there who were like this too, who were actually, they didn't understand. They kind of were like, okay, the game's being dumbed down, and now look at all these new people who don't really earn what they have. DSP was just outright resentful, being like, who the fuck are they to come in and push us out? And that's not what the thing was. Or that wasn't what the deal was. If anything, Street Fighter 4 brought a lot of the old heads back into the scene, if you will, or had them cross over from the games that they've been playing to maybe jump over and play something a bit more modern or something new and up to date, if you will. And that's why Street Fighter 4 is so important when it comes to the FGC and online gaming in general to some extent. But DSP was resentful of these people because these people were getting all of the fame, all the respect, all the notoriety that he has fought so hard in the FGC to get, and he never obtained it because he was an asshole. He was an asshole. DSP is notorious in the FGC. He's not well known. He's definitely not well respected. And in a lot of ways, people had put out the edict to forget about him, and that's exactly what happened. There's a lot of FGC podcasts out there, yeah? And there's a lot of people who like going back and talking to the old heads and get a feel of what it was like back in their day. How many of them have reached out to Phil? I would say a few have, at the very least. I've seen a couple of Discord conversations that talked about trying to reach out to him, and obviously their fucking emails got lost in the void, or their DMs either were not read or they were outright blocked because they're following some detractor of some type. But I think most people didn't even, his name doesn't come up because he didn't actually provide anything for the FGC. He didn't do anything at all. He put himself into debt for self-glorification that didn't mean anything. Even if, and I mean this wholeheartedly, give me a second. I mean this wholeheartedly. If DSP did win EVO 2005, it wouldn't have mattered. It would have always had an asterisk next to it. No one would have given a shit. It was a shitty port of a really shitty game. To be honest with you, there are a lot of people now that look back at Super Turbo and think it was really a trash game. It might have been fun, but it was a trash game. But either way, let's stay back on track here. It was a really trash port of a game. It doesn't really matter. If he had won, if Street Fighter V was on cabinet that year, it'd have been different. It would have been different. But because it was on a console, because it was a shitty port, even if the fact that it was on console I don't think really matters. I think the fact that it was just a really shitty port that no one respected and no one felt to give any time to, just shows. Because a lot of the people, and that's another thing that people don't really talk about. A lot of the people that were in the top 10 didn't even play that version of the game until they got to EVO, and they still made top 10. DSP had grinded that bitch before he got out there to EVO, and then went out to EVO damn near 5 days early to try to grind it out leading up to the tournament, and he still took fourth. Think about that. There are some people who are just born losers. Sorry, but I'm not sorry. I mean, there's some people who are just born losers. And DSP falls into that category. And not just because of his failure at EVO 2005, or his failure at EVO 2006, or his failure at EVO 2007, or getting himself ostracized from that community in some capacity. He's a loser because he has the loser mentality. And a loser will always think about what the next person has and believing that they deserve it without ever considering the time, the effort, and the work that went into to get it. The reason why DSP's legacy doesn't mean anything is because it had no meaning to it. As he just told you, I went out there to get games out there as quickly as possible, and I didn't care about anything else except for getting it out there. So how much quality do you think was actually in that game? How much thought do you think he really put into the gameplay to get it out there? As some people have said, he just drove his head into the wall until the wall eventually cracked and he took it as a victory. That was it.
That's entertainment. And I'm happy to have done that. I really am. Because you can now look at how I've changed over the years as both a gamer and a content creator. And see that I have taken the time to study and persevere at that style of game. But there's still this element that if Phil's going to be challenged by something ultra hard and he's going to fail and die, it's very entertaining. I'll be honest with you guys. A lot of the time so far in this Elden Ring playthrough, I come down to the very last hit of a boss. And sometimes I get the hit and sometimes I don't. Those are the moments, right? Those are the epic moments that people come to see. Me too. Like, I feel when I'm in the middle of this epic situation, okay? This epic situation of playing a game like this and having a situation where it's like, man, at any moment if I make a wrong move, I'm done. I gotta start over, right? It's cool. It's a unique feeling. And I love that suspenseful feeling. I get goosebumps sometimes during an epic boss fight in one of these games. And I gotta try to be like, oh no, stay calm. Don't get nervous. Don't let it bother you. You're going to beat this guy. Just, stay calm, play your game. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same mentality I used to have when I used to play competitive Street Fighter. You may know you're going up against something epically challenging, a well-known pro player. No. Play your game, learn the match, play it well. You can do this. Doesn't matter who you're facing. It's for irregardless. As long as you believe in yourself and you can persevere through this, right? It's like
that's cute. But how far did that really get you, though? First off, let's talk about how these epic moments that people come by to watch you fail. Oh, I had them down to the sliver of energy, and sometimes I get the hit, sometimes I don't, and that right there is the big payoff. If that was the case, right? If that was really the thing, yeah? Why would a death counter bother you? Just being honest with you. If that was the case, then why would a death counter bother you? On top of that, if that's really the moments that people on the live streams, for example, really come for, then why aren't we editing down the content to get rid of the bullshit so the viewers on YouTube later on, right, the people who are just watching the on-demand videos, if you will, that they can also get that moment too without all the clutter? I mean, the death counter kind of already is an active tally of what the struggle is, yeah? All of the previous deaths that you can keep in that video also demonstrate the deaths, or also demonstrate the struggles. But if you just get rid of the extra bullshit in between those things and make it more concise, like with Outsider, just like anybody else who does this is how you don't play it, then you have something more entertaining. You have something that people can really stand behind or get behind and be invested in. Instead, you put out these hour-long blocks or 2-hour-long blocks, depending on how he's doing it these days, of absolute mindless bullshit, and no one cares to see it. It's just, it's too much nonsense to go through to get to the very moments that he says people are there for. For anybody to be able to tolerate that shit on stream is already astounding in itself, but who would want to go through the suffering of that in a video? Like, that's way more effort for an entertainment value than anybody should be willing to put themselves through. No matter what you think of the content creator, you should not feel the need to drive your head into the wall over and over and over again just because the content creator chooses to do that themselves. That makes no sense.
Crazy that people play these games at a high level with such an audience, right? So, there's a group of people, that's what they live for, man. That's why they watch Darkside Phil. Those moments of him either failing, and raging.
If that's the case, and if those people are really there for the journey of that, excuse me, why is it that you can barely crack 1,000 views per video? if there are really a group of people that are there for that. What do you have, 197,000 subs on YouTube? Not that sub counts mean anything, but he damn sure don't have the views to back up his very statement. On top of that, it's amazing that people can do that and play it at a high level, or play at a very high level in front of a live audience like that, or in front of an audience in general, maybe because they give a damn about the game. You sit there and try to put all this emphasis on you stream the way you stream because you're trying to give the best experience to the audience, which is completely a lie, right? When you have other people out there who focus on the game and get to the triumphant moments, if you will, right? Who actually have the real payoff of actually overcoming a situation, and then they can get the reaction from the chat, right? And then they can kind of share that moment together, and then they progress forward. DSP will literally sit there and try to look for money every cent he gets, and it completely fucks the gameplay up, which is what the OG detractors told him when he started streaming way back in the day. That was what was going to happen. On top of that, excuse me, when he had his initial rant on Twitch back in the day, right? When he said Twitch is not a good business if you're for gamers. You know what I'm saying? It's all about subscriptions, subscribe, donate, you know what I'm saying? Buy this, shill this, whatever. He himself kind of described what his future was about to be, which is what makes him a massive hypocrite. But just because that's how people are doing it doesn't mean you have to do it. And it's ironic when you think about it that way, because this is Mr. I go against the grain. I'm not trying to be like everybody else. I want to do things my own way. I'm the one in the million. I'm the fucking unique snowflake and yada, yada, yada. And yet, look at how he's cucking out to all these fads and trends now. And a lot of the stuff that he's trying to do now, like with this React series thing, I'm not saying that reactions are old or played out, because they're not, to be honest. That's what I'm doing right now. So I'd be a hypocrite saying that. But he himself is behind the ball on it. He could have done this years ago and had profited quite a bit. But what did he want to do? He wanted to shit on everybody else who was successful doing it at that time. That's what he wanted. He was willing. That's why when people say he has pride, either in this day and age, people don't know what pride is, or you're trying to give DSP credit because you feel bad for him. It's one of the two. Because DSP doesn't have pride. He has ego. And he will put his ego to the side for money. So if he can shit on somebody and prevent himself from actually prospering like they are, he will. He did that with Twitch. He did that with Minecraft. He did that with Fortnite. He did that with a bunch of different things. And that's not pride. That's ego. It was always ego. That's why he was able to go ahead and use Patreon in some of those occasions, or in some of those situations, to actually, he used Patreon to give people an incentive to have him go back and play. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's the only reason why he played Minecraft, because people paid him to do it. If not, he wouldn't have done that shit. And look at all the hate and everything he got off that. They ripped his ass on that shit. Not as bad as Metal Gear Solid, but it was, or the whole Kojima thing, but it was pretty fucking close. And you had people who were, I remember, for example, you had some people who were playing Call of Duty at that time and started separate channels just for Minecraft stuff. You have, matter of fact, that's not a trend that really has separated, if you think about it, because Allier and T-Mart, Allier especially, he ended up, when Call of Duty was starting to get really shit, which, not that took long, he moved over to Fortnite, and he was eating good off that for the longest time. You know what I mean? Like, when you have situations like that, when you have opportunities like that, excuse me, you have to get on it and whatnot. And he looks at it as selling out. And really, if he knew anything about business, or if he believed anything that came out of his gullet as it pertains to business, or as it pertains to his legacy, he would understand that you would do whatever you need to do to preserve it. If this idiot right here can come on stream shamelessly and with so much pride, as people like to say, and beg for money to keep his fucking house, you're telling me that this idiot couldn't pick up a couple of sessions of Minecraft without being paid on Patreon and do that and see what happens? Think about KO Gaming. If dude had pride, then KO Gaming shouldn't exist. the edited style content and all that bullshit, that was stuff that he's always been against. And that takes away from the pure gameplay, like, you know what I'm saying, formula. In a lot of ways, he tries the how do I word this? He tries to present himself as a puritist, or is a not a Puritan. Yeah, I'm saying, like, I guess a puritist is the word for it. Where he is, or I'm gonna go with that because I feel like I'm not using that term correctly. I'm gonna go with that. Or we could also go with, he feels that he's an uncut diamond, right? And you should appreciate him in this form, right? Because if he starts to get cut down, if he starts to get shined, if he starts to get polished or whatever, he's no different from these other people, right? And you don't want the cookie cutter mentality. That's what he's been trying to portray for years. The problem is he's a hypocrite. He's a hypocrite because when everybody else jumps on these little trends or whatever, he essentially waits until those trends die out, or they're not so popular, or people have already moved on to the next thing, and then he jumps on it. He's nothing more than a scavenger. He's not a hunter because he doesn't have the skills, he doesn't have the talent, he's too lazy. So he's a scavenger. He's a vulture. He's a leech. He's someone who preys upon the already dead to get his substance, and then he stays just far enough back to not be considered hip or cool or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Relevant is really the term for it. He keeps himself far enough back to where he's not like everybody else, right? On the newest thing, right? On the newest fad or newest trend. But he is still relevant because he's playing it. He's just playing it on his own terms. He's playing it when he feels like he's ready to play it. And that doesn't make you relevant. It doesn't make you anything, to be honest with you, but a leech. It actually makes you stupid, to be honest with you, because you're missing out on what is considered free money in a lot of ways. It was a chance to grow his to grow his audience, right? Or certainly to expand his audience, and then if people like what he's doing, to profit later on off that. But he doesn't believe in that. The concept of trying to build a YouTube channel from scratch, if you will, try to build an audience, right, and get them invested. And then if they feel that they really appreciate him and the content that he provides, then they can pay him. That makes no sense to him. When he shows up every day, he needs to be paid. But here's the thing. Why? You're going to be here tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. You don't have any options. And because you don't have any options, you don't have any choices. If you don't have any choices, that means you have to take a chance. And that's the only reason why you see him doing reaction content now. Because he doesn't have any options. He doesn't have any choices. He needs to now, he has to go ahead and listen to suggestions that were given to him years ago that most people don't even care about now. That people aren't even invested in. You know what I'm saying? And that's why he has to hype that shit up to get essentially the base of his audience, right? Or the base of his fan base to buy into that. But it's not drawing anybody else really new into it. Yeah, they might watch one or two parts of it, but after that, it's not going to be long for it's not going to take long, I should say, for anybody to realize that he's merely dragging this out. And he's not really insightful, he's not really bringing anything to anything, and they're just going to pick up and leave. That's why he had the hardest time trying to sell Down the Rabbit Hole DSP. He couldn't, if it wasn't for the Down the Rabbit Hole Wings of Redemption, he would have never ended up doing the DSP one. He couldn't convince people to give him money for his own shit, so he had to give the Wings of Redemption one away for free. Which is crazy, because that was the one that could have been the most profitable. You know what I'm saying? But he doesn't want, yet again, this is where the ego comes into play. Okay, I can't get you idiots to buy in on my shit, so let me give you guys Wings stuff so I can make money off Wings, right? Even though he humiliated himself by doing it. And I know most people would say, well, him asking Wings for permission is not humiliation. But it actually is. If you have treated someone or treated a group of people as if they're beneath you, right? and they're losers and they're all these different things. And then you have to go to them, behind the scenes or not, and ask them for permission for something. That makes you a loser. That makes you less than what they are, or what you say they are, I should say. That right there that must have been humiliating. I hope it was. All those times that Wings had tried to extend, not an olive branch, but just wanted to talk to him or interact with him or play a game with him or whatever, and DSP used to brush him off like he wasn't worth his time and shit, and now you have to go to him and beg him for his permission, for his consent, if you will, more than permission, to do a "this is how you don't play"? That's crazy. He wasn't asking for permission. Let me keep that. Let me keep that a buck right now. He wasn't asking Frederick or Wings for permission as it pertains to that video. He was basically asking them for pity. That's what he was asking for. He was asking for pity. And they gave it to him. Where's the pride in that? Where's the pride in that?
Or finally epically persevering, overcoming. Okay? And I'm okay, I'm totally okay with that. That absolutely that makes sense to me. And would you say those people want to see me suffer? Well, yeah. It's not necessarily fun to watch someone literally steamroll absolutely everything in a video game. I told you guys how disappointed I am that Radahn was nerfed. I wanted to have challenge, and that challenge was taken away from me by FromSoft when they patched the game. Okay? And that really upsets me. That absolutely upsets me. Alright? But there is a third group of people. I like to call the hate watchers. Alright? These aren't people that like me and want to chill with me. These aren't people that enjoy my personality when I come up against something challenging and like to see me fail because of my reactions and then eventually persevere. These people are genuinely bad-intentioned, toxic, negative people who, for one insane reason or another, and yes, I will absolutely categorize it as insane, because the reason that these people hate me makes no fucking sense. These are people who never met me. These are people who don't know any truth about me. What they've heard is slander.
First off, you don't need to meet Darkside Phil to know who Phil Burnell is. You don't need to understand DSP to grasp what kind of person Phil Burnell is. It just doesn't work that way. See, this is what happens when you sat there and put out every aspect of your life for profit. People don't need... There is no mystery to you, right? There is no deep... There's nothing deep about you, right? You are what you are, which is what John and Howard had said. Everything, all the exaggeration bullshit that he does or whatever, that the DSP or Darkside Phil aspect of it, it's Phil Burnell. It's just exaggerated. It is what it is. You don't need to know him, or you don't need to know him in person, I should say, to get a grasp of what he is, or who he is. And more importantly, because he has categorized so much of his life over a period of time, when you saw him at those tournaments, when you saw them at those conventions, when you saw him on vacation, you saw him for what he really was. And that's the part that he is not willing to acknowledge. He wants you to believe that there's more to him, and there's not. He wants you to believe there is, though, but there's not. And he knows it. That's why his past, that's the reason why his past is as relevant now as whatever he's doing in the present will be to those, to other people in the future. It's just what it is. There is no changing Phil Burnell. He's a piece of human garbage. He always has been. He always will be. And he'll always be remembered as that. No one will ever be able... Well, let's reword that. People will be very hard-pressed to try to justify that that Phil Burnell was a decent human being. It will be very, very hard for people to make that argument. And you want to know what the irony of that is? You want to know what's really interesting about that? It'll be detractors, trolls, haters, and critics that'll be the ones that try to make that argument. It won't be anybody in his fan base. It won't be Swaggins. It won't be Only Iced Coffee. It won't be Straight Cash Homie. It won't be any of those guys. Those people will not make that argument. They won't even know how. When DSP fades away, which really means when he dies, I'm not wishing that upon him. I'm just giving you the reality of it all. When DSP finally passes away, if you will, or passes on, if that sounds a bit more, not pleasant, but if that's a bit more tolerable, his fan base will dwindle, if you want to call it a fan base. Those people will fade away. They will evaporate literally in the next second. And it'll be the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics who will write his story. And there will always be someone within that group who will try to paint him not in a positive light, but will want to show that there were some type of redeemable qualities. The problem is, it's not even a problem. The reality is there is none. And they'd be lying to themselves if they were going to ever attempt to do it. They will, clearly. There are people trying to do that now, but there will be nothing to show for it. At all. They would be doing nothing but lying to themselves. And it'll all be out of pity. It'll be all out of pity. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there are some people who are just pieces of shit. And they're cool with it. Period. End of story. It is what it is. And whatever you think he has done or whatever he told you he did back in 2010, 2011, 2012, who gives a fuck? You can't live in the past. You know what I'm saying? If he was really a better person, he would be doing what he needs to do right now in the present. You know what I'm saying? To give himself a better chance in the future. And he don't want to do that. He wants to tell everybody he's done that. But he doesn't actually want to do it. Because he doesn't actually believe he's done anything wrong. And anytime DSP ever admits that he's done something wrong, he's only done it because so much time has gone by, or he just has to. Let's reword that. So much time has passed by that he is comfortable enough with going ahead and accepting it. And he has so many brainless idiots around him at the time that they'll just accept it. Like, okay, great, Phil. And then they just move on. And it has no real substance to anybody else except for the very people who hold the knife to his fucking throat and tell him, squeal, pig, squeal. And he knows it. All of that is nothing more than appeasement for the people who still hold him to task. Or hold him responsible, if you will. Or tell him that he should take responsibility for it. That's all it is. It's all for appeasement. He's not doing it because he's really grown as a person, as a content creator, or anything. He does it because it's the only way out. And he's already lost so much that what else does he have to lose by admitting it? That's why, as it pertains to the bank leaks and all that bullshit, he may never confirm any of that, but if he does, it won't be till years and years and years later. If he's even around. If he's even given the opportunity. He might admit to some of it. Maybe. Maybe he won't. And that's how he's always been. And that's what makes him a garbage person. Amongst other things. How dare you hold people to their word or say that, oh, these people made promises, yada, 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 when you yourself can't even hold to your own word. You sat there and made quote unquote promises to people, or you said you were going to do things or whatever, and then disregarded it because, oh, I have to do what I have to do for my business, or I have to do what I have to do for the little time that I have because I don't spend enough time with my family, or whatever the other bullshit that comes to mind. It's okay for Dark Side Phil to break his word on everything, or disregard, you know what I'm saying, obligations that he may have, but if anybody else does it, God forbid.
Defamation, conspiracy, and contrived bullshit. But people have found ways to take slander, defamation, conspiracy, and contrived bullshit and turn it into popularity on the internet. And so, when people are literally daily live streaming my content illegally, talking shit.
Let me actually address that
up.
too real quick. He doesn't actually care about popularity. When he actually is talking about popularity, he's talking about profitability. And it doesn't matter whether you profit off of Darkside Phil's content or not. He only sees the dollar signs. So the argument of I don't profit off his content for whatever reason, or I do profit in such a way, but I don't do, like, let's say you don't have ads on your video, right? If that's how you choose to go about it, whatever. Whether you have ads on your video, whether you have Patreon, whether you're collecting super chats, whether you're collecting gifted subs or memberships or whatever. However, which way you're deciding to do this, you're profiting off of him in some way, shape, or form. Just accept it. Period. Just accept it. On top of that, he's already accepted it. He assumes that everybody and their mother are making ad revenue off of him. Even though, if I remember correctly, most detractors say they don't. And whether they do or they don't shouldn't matter anyway. But I'm pretty sure at least a few people I can think of off the top of my head say that they don't collect ad revenue. Even though it doesn't even matter. And here's the kicker. Even if you don't have any monetization on your channel, who gives a shit? And I say that not to be disrespectful. I say that because if you're not monetizing your channel, YouTube is. So YouTube is still eating off Darkside Phil regardless. And I don't know if he's ever even been insightful enough to even realize that. So no matter what, someone's profiting off of Darkside Phil. Whether it's the person who makes the 4 or 5 hour video with all the editing and all the research that went behind that, or YouTube itself. Someone's profiting off of him. It is what it is. But the point of all that was it's he doesn't care about popularity. He really don't. Like, he really don't. Because he equates popularity to profitability. To profit, I should say. And that's what matters to him. He doesn't give a shit about popularity. He hasn't given a shit about that since the situation with Tevin on Twitch. When he got Tevin, They Call Me TXT, and Bill Purnell kicked off and whatnot, he fucked himself. And he didn't realize it at the time. But later on, when Tevin came over here and really led that campaign, which is essentially what inspired the majority, if not all, of the restreamers that you see now, he realized he fucked himself. He created a monster, and he couldn't stop it. And all he could do was shield himself on Twitch, and Twitch couldn't do nothing to help him. I remember watching some of Tevin's Friday night streams, for example, kicked Phil's ass in viewership, made crazy money on top of that. And Phil was pissed off because he was struggling. He was struggling to make his little $50 or $60 because Jax wasn't, or he made his $100 off Jax, which, Jax should have been saving that shit to fucking get himself a car, but whatever. Idiots are idiots, I guess. You know what I'm saying? He'll go the way to the dodo bird, just like the rest of those idiots over there will. But the point being is, he may have gotten his little $100 off this one idiot, but he's not getting any money from anybody else. But he has people in his chat telling him, "Yo, did you know that Tevin just got this huge tip from whoever?" And it made Phil even more resentful. And then he's getting his ass kicked by, people like Goji. You know what I'm saying? Jose and everybody else. It was just a shitty night altogether, and he couldn't stop it. And he tried. I know he did. I know he tried to flag those streams, and he couldn't do it. And remember, what are you upset about anyway? YouTube is an archive channel. And what's the problem? You got your $100, right? You appreciate every little bit that you get, so why are you watching someone else's pockets? Why are you envious about what he was making? And then when LSB went ahead and really started to make his push, he was getting beat off from both sides. And then don't forget about Dark Dave Mirrors, who was still bringing in more viewership at times than Phil was. So now he's getting beat on 3 different sides. And then when Dark Dave Mirrors introduced Raw DSP it's Raw DSP into the mix, DSP was screwed. Because now there was no reason to go to YouTube, to go to Phil's YouTube channel to get any content for your video. You could just go to the Raw DSP channel and get it. So he got fucked all the way. He got fucked all the way around with that. You know what I'm saying? And that right there is innovation. That's what real innovation is. And DSP don't understand that. And more importantly, DSP doesn't have anybody around him to help him with that or to initiate it. There's a lot of people over there who have ideas, and there may be even more people over there that are willing to do it. But if DSP, even if DSP wasn't willing to pay them, DSP should at least shout them out. He won't even do that, because it undercuts the mythos that he's the ultimate underdog. He's the one man, crew, one man gang, whatever, right? And you can't share the spotlight with other people. There can only be one emperor. There can only be one king.
Always doing toxic memes, insulting, bringing up new conspiracy after new conspiracy. Like the newest one is, Phil's been using a guide all along. Phil has not done a legitimate thing in Elden Ring. He literally researches.
That's ironic, because admittedly, he just recently admitted that he's been watching other playthroughs to get an idea. And he's been caught saying that he uses guides. That's not a conspiracy. Phil has been doing that for years. That's how he's been trying to keep ahead of this is how you don't play. And it still fails. Because Phil is the exact type of idiot. Okay, you got two different types of people. You actually got three, but you got two different types of people. You have people who learn from experience and people who can go ahead and absorb the task and get the understanding from the book. You got two separate types of people. And then the third one is the people who can do both. DSP is so up his own fucking ass and is such a fucking mark that even if you give him the written guide, he'll only pull what he feels that he can cheese the situation with and leaves everything else. So he's gonna fail. Or he'll watch someone else do it, right? And he'll absorb it that way. But he'll look at it eventually as, it's too much work. Let me just see what cheese tactics that he's using, and then let me pull on that. Not understanding why some of those instances or some of those tomes are in place for a reason. He can't ever look at a problem as a whole and come up with a solution. He has to look for the easiest way out. He has to look for the corners in a circle, if you will. Because he does that, because he plays games like that, because he's lived his life like that, to be honest with you, is the reason why he fails. And he's mad that people point it out and laugh at it. That's not a conspiracy. That's not me making an assumption. You clearly see that every damn day. He can't even come up with ideas for celebratory events or whatever the case may be. It's always something that someone else has brought up. He never does anything on his own. He really hasn't. And when he finally does take one of these suggestions and decides to do it, he makes it seem like he's somehow rewarding all of you by doing so. Like he's doing you a favor because he took on your suggestion. And that's not the case. He did it because he had nothing else. Because all of his quote-unquote original ideas always fall flat because they come across lazy and they come across, to be honest with you, insincere. It's all he's all about the profit. He's all about the money, and he can't hide it. He doesn't know how. And it's funny because you're talking about someone who's a notorious liar, but he's also so transparent that even the most dentist, no, not like dentist, dented, I guess is what I'm looking for, of fucking dent heads know that or realize it. I know I was trying to go something. I know I have a joke for that dentist thing, but I can't think of it at the moment. Anyway, you guys get my point. So that's what it comes down to. It's not conspiracy. Are there a lot of conspiracies that go along or go about him or speculations or whatever? Absolutely. I'm a major perpetrator of that shit for sure. And it's fun. The speculation shit is always fun and whatnot. Tying him down to the facts is obviously the point, but the speculation is always hilarious. What makes it even more hilarious is when the speculation turns out to be true, and more often than not, it does. More often than not. Obviously, there's been some faults, clearly. And here's the thing: if it was nothing more than just pointless speculation, he would be able to wave that shit off and keep it moving. But he don't. That's the reason why his dumbass is on kiwi farms all the fucking time, because he's trying to stay ahead of whatever the most recent thing that is either being speculated or whatever people are digging into or whatever people have caught him, lacking on. And he tries to victimize himself over. If it wasn't true, how do you victimize yourself? That doesn't make any sense. How do you get mad about something that doesn't exist?
Possible thing beforehand so that he can persevere in the game, because if he didn't, he would never beat anything in the game, right? You know, one of the the famously and infamously times that I did really well in the game was the end of Sekiro. I legit had never seen the final boss of Sekiro before I fought him. Not once. I didn't watch a video or playthrough. I never looked ahead in the game.
Now keep in mind, that's a great screenshot. Jesus Christ. You have a notorious liar basically pleading with you right now saying, I've lied before. I've admitted to lying. I've been caught lying. But please believe me, I never saw what this final boss was so I could beat him and supposedly get this world record or the first or top 100 or whatever the fucking thing is he has attached to that shit. How does that happen? How does an infamous liar have the gall to ask people to please believe me on this one situation? This one situation that I use to prop myself up and to elevate myself, not only on my streams and in my YouTube videos, but also on social media, because I'm so pathetic that I need to do that. And it was something that defines me, and I really need people to actually appreciate it. Like, why would anybody give any credence to any of that? That makes no sense. That makes no sense.
First time legit, and within 3-4 tries beat him. All right, while other people were taking hours and hours, it took me 3-4 tries. I was like, I got him. I know what to do. Take this. Okay? To this day, people will not admit that I did well in the game. He cheated. He looked that up.
Why should anybody care? Here's the real thing. Why should anybody care? And that's what bothers him. That's what bothers him more than that's what bothers him more than the allegations that he cheated. Is that no one else cares. That people essentially looked at it and were like, nah, you more than likely looked at a guide, and then they hand waved it off and they moved on. And he's the one who's still trying to keep the torch lit. Not even the torch. The ambers, if you will, or the embers, I should say, inside of this pathetic attempt for a fucking campfire. Not even a real campfire. Just a couple of logs that aren't even dry enough for kindling. He's the one that's doing that shit. I mean, Phil don't camp, so it is what it is. But, like, you know what I'm saying? It's alright. But, he should, though. It'd be good for him. He needs the fresh air. But, it's like that. He wants so hard to keep this torch. I'll do that. It's easier. He wants to try so hard to keep this torch burning, and no one cares. It's already been disregarded. Let it go. No one gives a shit. No one gives a shit. And even in the snowball's chance in hell that he's not lying. And he is, for once in his miserable fucking life, telling the truth. Yet again, we're back to square one yet again. Who cares? Or more importantly, why should people care? And he can't answer that question. He's mad that people don't care, but he can't actually explain to you why people don't care. Or why people should care, I should say. Ask him that the next time he decides to bring that bullshit up.
Look that up, because we, somewhere down in our twisted, toxic hearts, right? We can't believe that this guy could possibly do good at anything. He's the ultimate bum, right? He's terrible at everything he does. He schloves his way through life. He doesn't deserve any popularity. He's never been good at anything. They write off my Street Fighter years, right?
Ooh, we are knee deep in the Kiwi farms. Just make an account. That's all I'm gonna say. Just make an account at this point. You're that invested in it. So let me get this straight, Phil. People have to have these terrible black hearts, right? They are the worst type of people. They are the reincarnation of people like Ted Bundy, fucking Jeffrey Dahmer. What's that dude's name? Clown guy. What's his name? No, not Gary Ridgway. Gary Ridgway was Green River. And Dennis Rader was BTK. Fuck. I can't think of dude's name right now. Fucking A. And he's like the big three when you think of serial killers. I can't think of his name right now. Interestingly enough, that's crazy because I was just reading an article on him. They think they just found another stash of bodies somewhere up there where that dude's at and shit on a piece of property he owned that people are just now discovering that he has. I cannot think of this motherfucker's name at the moment. I'm very hurt by that. Well, someone will in the comment section will eventually point it out if they choose that it's a part of their time. Here's the thing: we are the drudges of society just because we don't believe a notorious, infamous liar that he was able to beat a game on his own, or he was able to beat a boss on his own, or whatever. Take that in. Think about that. We are all literally the worst type of people because we don't believe that he did something on his own. That's insane. That's crazy. That's so crazy.
They say that I never did anything good in Street Fighter. That even though there's years of history, tournament results all over the internet, right? He was never good at Street Fighter. Even though it's well documented that I was a prominent tournament director on the East Coast of the United States for a good
John Wayne
year.
Gacy. That's who I was thinking. John Wayne Gacy. All right, Street Fighter. Let's talk about that because that's always fun. He wasn't as good as he said he was. Sorry, but not sorry. To be honest with you, fuck the bullshit. He wasn't as good as he said he was. Clearly, his results prove it. his highest placing on a national level. I'm not talking about these qualifiers. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about these Evo qualifiers that he went to and shit. Because it's kind of lame. It's kind of lame, for example, that you would go to multiple Evo qualifiers, right, to flex that you've won multiple Evo qualifiers, and then you go to the big dance and then you lose. Evo 2005, Evo Worlds 2005 is his highest placing at Evo. What about all the years that happened after that? He went 2 more years after Evo 2005, and he went a couple years before that and failed each and every time. Literally has a track record of failure. Now, yet again, let's go ahead and be not even generous. Let's be honest about the situation. Did he win a bunch of qualifiers? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He sat there and he put himself in debt, traveling around the country, right, to win these little Evo qualifiers, right? That most people have various opinions on whether they was worthwhile or not. But whatever. He went to multiple Evo qualifiers and won them and put himself into debt. Oh, I'm sorry. He didn't win every one of those Evo qualifiers, actually. I lied. Just like he did. He placed highly in some of those Evo qualifiers. He didn't win all those tournaments. He placed highly in some of those tournaments, meaning top 4, maybe even top 8, which would have given him a qualifying slot. So even that nonsense isn't necessarily true, and it wasn't that long ago where he admitted, yeah, I said I went to all those Evo qualifiers and I won. Well, I didn't win them. I just placed highly at them, or at some of them. So now we have that. So we had someone who lied for years and said that, oh, he was the most dominant player that year and he went to every Evo qualifier and won them. But then he admits years later, oh, well, I didn't win all of them. I just placed really highly at them. And then got butthurt that he went to Evo that year and thought because he won all those qualifiers, it would skip him up further and further in the brackets, and it didn't. They looked at all of those. They looked at his highest qualifier win, right? Or placement, I should say. And that's what they used. They didn't use anything else. So all those other tournaments he went around to, trying to get clout, meant nothing. And then more importantly, the very people that he competed with at some of those tournaments, he ended up meeting at Evo Worlds and still didn't beat most of them. Or if he did, congratulations, but he didn't actually win the tournament as a whole. With that being said, as it pertains to people that he's beaten, yes, he has beaten some notable names. Justin Wong is on that list. He's beaten a couple of well-known guys. Okay. He has beaten some well-known players in the FGC. Okay. Where's that Evo championship at? All of that stuff that he did to put himself in debt, right? All of those hours grinding and training on John and Howard's arcade machine, all that bullshit, what did it get him? Congratulations, you beat some well-known players. Congratulations, you won one, maybe two Evo qualifiers. You still took fourth. And then when we talk about on cabinet, right? We don't talk about that bullshit port now. Let's talk about on the cabinet. Let's talk about that real work. You fell short. They passed you around like a hooker, essentially. It was like a prostitute, to be honest with you. You should feel dirty. Just like how they passed you around in those money matches. Especially in Marvel 2. They treated him... excuse me. His wallet was the ATM, but they treated him like a common whore. It's ugly. And you know it. And the thing is you can look just by the expression on his face with each and every one of those losses. You can see more and more of his soul being taken. And in one of those, it's in the Mr. Huff Stuff video. Someone in the background says, I can't remember who he was playing at the time, but someone in the background screams, "A better man would have quit by now." And everybody laughed it up or whatever. But here's the thing: a man knows when to quit. Truth be told, a man who is honest with himself and who's comfortable with himself can admit that he's been beaten. Okay, you got me. You know what I'm saying? It's time to get back into the lab and see what's what. Because he was never nothing about nothing in Marvel 2. So just like how he told Triforce that he had no business being in the Third Strike community, DSP had no business being in Marvel 2. At all. Had no business being there. And you look at what they did to him. They proved it. Just like Super Turbo. The Japanese, who were the top 3 placers of EVO 2005, proved that he wasn't worthy of being there. It was a shitty ass port that they hadn't even played, or allegedly. They haven't really played, or they didn't have a lot of experience in. And they beasted the fuck out of him. How is it that the Great White Hope, you know what I'm saying, North America's #1 Super Turbo player, got beasted by people who didn't have nearly as much experience in this shitty port than he did? Off basic fundamentals, raw skill, they beasted him. Easy. You can go back and look at some of the match footage. They beat him easy. You could tell by their gameplay, they did not look like they were flustered. They did not look like they were in trouble. Even if they dropped a round or two, who cares? They clearly had everything in the bag. That should tell you something. That's why it's easy to discount him. Because even the people in the community back in that day, people in the FGC community discounted it. They thought it was pathetic that he was running around saying that shit. And to be honest, unless Mike Watts actually says, Mike Watson actually says that, hey, I apologize to DSP, I don't believe that conversation even happened. Unless DSP has actual proof that he actually reached out to him in DMs or whatever and said, hey, yo Phil, I said this shit about you at what was that, North Cal Regionals or South Cal Regionals, whatever it was, and whatnot. I apologize. Unless he has that shit in writing, I don't believe him. And if he doesn't mind sharing the emails between Phil, I'm talking about Phil here. If Phil doesn't have a problem sharing the emails between him and Ben from the Drunken Peasants, he shouldn't have a problem with going ahead and showing a screenshot of that. Of that conversation allegedly between him and Mike Watson about Mike Watson shitting on him. And he's like, yeah, there's a guy named DSP who's a total piece of shit, by the way. I just want to make sure that's out there on YouTube. I want to actually hear the apology for that. Because I don't believe it happened. I don't. And no one else does really either. So, he can hold on to that too all he wants. He was a laughingstock in the FGC, just like he's a laughingstock on YouTube, just like how he was a laughingstock on Twitter or on Twitch, and why he's even more of a laughingstock now that he's back on YouTube. How do you go ahead and relegate something to an archive channel and then have to come back to it crawling, kicking, and screaming 5 years later? Wow. Well, you see what pigs can do.
In the New York and other tri-state area, Phil never contributed anything positive to the Street Fighter community. He was always just a toxic jerk. They literally just erase history to pass their own twisted, toxic narrative. And they believe it, because these are the same people that believe insane conspiracy theories about everything else. They likely think that vaccines are dangerous to you. They probably think that there's a fucking conspiracy.
Wait, weren't you the same idiot that was talking about not getting vaccinated? Weren't you the same idiot that was mad that people were in the stores wearing masks and were sitting there stocking up on shit and you couldn't get what you wanted, but everybody else was able to get what they wanted, despite the fact that they got up early to do it? Aren't you the same idiot who says you're vaccinated, but you don't actually have no proof of it, or you have something on your phone, which is questionable because a lot of people think that's actually Catherine's vaccination card and not yours, which kind of makes sense, to be honest with you. Like, him and this whole vaccination thing is kind of up in the air anyway. Do I honestly think DSP has been vaccinated? The answer is no. I don't think he has. I think Catherine, of course Catherine did, but I don't think he is. To be honest. But it doesn't really matter whether he is or not anyway. If he actually comes down with COVID, not that I'm wishing anything upon anything, it's going to be rough for him whether he's vaccinated or not. Either way, he's going to suffer a bit. So it doesn't matter. But this is the same petty bitch that throughout 2020 and 2021 was bitching and complaining about how the government was being run during the pandemic and all this bullshit and whatever the case may be, and how he was so inconvenienced that he couldn't get what he wanted, or they couldn't order food from where they wanted to go, or he couldn't go to the grocery store and get his special type of fucking authentic tomato, whatever, right? Good tomato sauce doesn't matter really what the tomatoes that you put in it. Now, to be honest with you, I've had the tomatoes that he brags about. I've had that compared to like regular tomatoes from like either California, from Mexico, or from the East Coast, and it didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't taste too much of a difference. Maybe there wasn't enough sugar in it. I don't know, but it didn't seem that much of a difference, to be honest. I'm not saying it's a bad tomato. I'm just saying I don't see the difference. As it pertains to that, a lot of people will only notice what they want to notice, or they only believe what they want to believe. He's a prime candidate for that. He knows that. So him sitting here saying that people who make up conspiracies about him must believe in conspiracies about other people is kind of full of shit, when he has had conspiracies, or he has made accusations about other content creators in not just the FGC, but also on YouTube and Twitch. And when he was held to task on that, he said he didn't understand why people were making such a big deal out of it. It was just his opinion. Someone asked him about it. It's not like he went out of his way to talk about it. Someone presented him the question and he answered it. And okay, maybe he didn't have all the information at the time, but I'm a reactionary streamer, dude. So yet again, how is it at everybody else's detriment to act like this, but when he does it, it's all right?
Them in the government, you know what I'm saying? Like, they believe in crazy shit. But that kind of people, they flock together on the internet and they form entire communities. And there's people who, I hate to say it, prey on those people. All right? Do I actually believe that the people who watch the restreamers of my content, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Do I actually believe that the restreamers of my content believe 90% of the shit that they say about me? No. What I think has happened is they realize now that they can take advantage of a bunch of gullible, stupid people. And they realize that they need to constantly...
I love this. Not for the reason that you think, but I love this. I like the fact that he's like, the people who watch the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics, or the people who watch the restreamers, for example, the people who watch them, keep in mind, the people who watch the restreamers are gullible idiots. Now, here's the thing. Those supposed gullible idiots, Phil, are the people that you want to get on your side. Those are the people that you want to come over and watch your content. And then the detractors that you're basically calling out and out liars, those are the people that you're always trying to convince you're not a bad person and they should stop doing what they're doing. How the hell are you going to bring anybody to your side saying the shit that you say? Or holding on to the mentality that you hold on to? That's absolutely ridiculous. It's borderline retarded, to be honest. You're not these gullible idiots who believe everything people have to say or whatever. The same thing is said about people in your audience. And they are literally gullible idiots. Sorry, not sorry. They are literally gullible idiots. To be honest with you. Some of them have the mental capacity of pudding. Not even good pudding, just pudding. And you know that. And those are the very people that you take advantage of. This is just a lot of projection on your part, to be honest. But how are you ever going to win anybody over to your side when the very people that you're trying to appeal to, you call them idiots, you call them stupid, you call them gullible, just because they don't believe you outright? You're a known liar. You lie just as easy as you breathe. No, you lie just as easily as you snort. Why would anybody give any credence to anything that you say? That's truly stupidity. It really is. But why would anybody want to give you the benefit of the doubt? What have you done to earn it? And yes, you have to earn it. That's why when you say, oh, I'm going to debunk this, I'm going to debunk that, where's your proof? Your word means nothing. So you need something to back that up. The detractors, trolls, haters, and critics have mountains of evidence on you. What are you going to do? You're going to say that your past self lied? Did you forget that most of that stuff is on video? And that's the reason, and that's actually one of the harder parts of trying to lock down every little lie that he's ever had. You have to find that shit on the King of Hate forums. You have to find it on old posts on Twitter. You have to, I think his original Reddit got nuked, so a lot of that shit's going to be lost. And then one of your best depositories for some of that stuff is old school, is the OGs of the OG detractors, and honestly, a lot of Tevin's old streams that are private at the moment, unless he eventually puts them up on the archive or he lets them go live again. That you're going to find mountains upon mountains of lore in those things. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, unless someone has those things backed up somewhere, I mean, you may not get your hands on it until Tevin's ready to unprivate them, if he ever decides to do so. So there's a lot of his lore that is actually missing. It's in the dark ages, especially 2015, which is a big year, to be honest with you, when it comes to DSP lore, and a good portion of that is missing. You know, what is it, 7-8 months or some shit. So, you know what I'm saying? You would have to go through a lot to find it. And that's the thing. That's what bothers him. He doesn't want people to go back and look. He really doesn't. And he knows that all of the Clark Dents, or, you know what I'm saying, or Harvey Dents, or whatever you want to call them, aren't going to do it. He's not willing to do it, so certainly they're not willing to do it. But he knows that a detractor, troll, hater, or critic will. And there are. I've been told on good authority that there's that people actively looking for stuff. And he hates it. It's bad enough that he already said the lie, right? Or he perpetrated the lie. Now there's somebody, or there's a group of people out there looking to prove it? Who's worse? The person who said the lie, or the person who's looking to prove that it was?
Be stirring them up to get that fervor going, to keep that gravy train rolling for them. So if it means making something up completely, or taking something and twisting it in a way that it's not what it was intended, or literally just pulling conspiracy out of thin air out of their ass, they will do it on a daily basis in order to profit.
Okay, so who's making all this bank that they're living high and dry off of it? SnortBucks? Mr. Huffstuff? Soma Julius Cruz? Who? Like, someone give me some names. But he wants to talk about bullshit conspiracies, all this and that. Let's talk about some bullshit conspiracies. Hey, Phil, you remember in 2018 when you said that your parents were dying and they really wanted you to come out there with Catherine to meet them and whatever, but you couldn't because you had to make this money to pay your taxes? And then all of a sudden your parents said that, oh, well, we'll pay for you to come out there, and you were still reluctant to do it. Now, keep in mind, these people are sick and dying, by the way. But you were still reluctant to go ahead and do it, and then all of a sudden you held 2 fundraisers before going and made a decent amount of money, and then you ended up going out there for like 4 or 5 days, whatever the case may be. Then you came back and held a podcast and made a bunch of bank off that shit. You remember all that nonsense? And then you revealed while you were on vacation that you guys were getting married, and then you tried to make people believe that that wasn't pre-planned. But that's a conspiracy, though, right? I lied to you guys just a minute ago. You didn't know that? I made all that up. That none of that ever happened. None of that happened at all. He didn't sit there and tell his audience that his parents were sick and dying, and he wished he could go out there and see them, but he couldn't. Right? And that was probably the same thing he was telling his parents. I'd like to go out there and meet you guys or see you guys and have you meet Kat, but I can't because I owe all this money in taxes. And didn't finesse them into paying those taxes. Or more importantly, finesse them to pay for the fucking wedding. And the honeymoon, if you think about it. But I made all that up, though. Right? That was all a lie. Just like, for example, this other thing that people like to harp on. The situation with the escort saga. No. Let's call a spade a spade. She was not, Kimberly Brinks didn't exist. She wasn't a high-end escort that was charging him $180,000, $200,000 or whatever the fuck it was for the girlfriend experience. What he did is he found something much more in his price bracket, right? Something discounted, if you will. He found some chick in Detroit, in Michigan, who was broken, and I don't say that, I don't mean that, no, let's reword that. I meant it. She is broken, but I don't say that loosely, if you will. He took a woman who clearly had a lot of problems, who had a lot of fucking issues, pulled her from it sounds like a much more stable situation with Subaru Man in Michigan, and moved her over there with him in Renton, Washington, and tried to pass it off as if they were a loving couple, which is absolute bullshit. And then married her for God knows what reason. And now they have even less interaction now than he did with Panda when him and Panda were together. The only thing about the Kimberly Brinks thing is that there was no high-end escort. But then you also have Brenda and her husband, who were running a high-end catfishing scheme for like a fucking decade, and Phil was getting finessed out of that bitch. And I also believe, and I have no proof of this, but I believe that is true. At least I think so. I think Brenda and her husband got some money out of Phil. I honestly did. I think he did pay them, who knows how much, probably a couple thousand at best, to make them go away. I honestly think that's what happened. And like anything else, you never negotiate with terrorists and you don't pay ransoms, because if you do, they'll more than likely come back. And after a while, Kimberly Brinks, supposedly she got her money, and then she stopped, and then, bam, she's back again. As if nothing ever happened. There's a whole lot that just doesn't make sense about that fucking story, even though it's kind of long put away and shit. But back to the details. There was no high-end escort that he was flying across the world or whatever the case may be. It was some chick that he met that he was flying halfway across the country while she was living with her boyfriend in Michigan. And they never spoke to each other at all on the phone. Everything had to be by text because he didn't want to talk to her on the phone. No, maybe because she didn't want Subaru Man walking in on her when she's speaking to your dumbass. And then, when Subaru Man found out about what the situation was and finally kicked her out, you were in a mad dash to get her over there with you before she found residency or she found someone else that would pick her up or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? Because you ain't put all that time into her already, and you had already flown her out a couple times as it is. Which makes it even more ironic, because that whole escort situation revolves around him begging for money on a daily basis for taxes. So how the fuck is this idiot paying taxes and flying this girl out? And then eventually having her move in. That's the whole point of the escort saga in the beginning. He was using his girlfriend to drum up money to pay his taxes so he could save his fucking house. Allegedly. The only thing that was wrong about that situation is there was no Kimberly Brinks. There was no escort. But what there was is a couple who was catfishing the fuck out of him, allegedly. Or what? Or they were at least putting the pressure on him. Right? And he was flying some woman to him multiple times for essentially the girlfriend experience. The only difference was she was, quote unquote, not a prostitute, and or an escort, and she wasn't from the other side of the fucking world. Other than that, everything pretty much came out. The money that he was begging for to pay taxes was used to fly Catherine back and forth, and then eventually to have her move in. That is the entire point of the escort saga. And it's very easy to lose sight of that. This piece of garbage was begging for money to pay taxes while he was flying another man's woman, or another man's horse, or however you want to word it, back and forth from Michigan to Washington, and then eventually he was able to get her to move in. That's what happened. That's what happened. And that loving relationship, that soulmate bullshit, you see how it manifests. She's in her office vegetating, or she's downstairs now vegetating, whatever the fuck that case is, and whatnot, and he's as miserable as ever. He looks terrible. Does he look like he's in a loving relationship? No. And that's by his own faults, not by anybody else. He's the one who chooses to work 6 days a week and then only run errands with her one day and eat DoorDash all fucking day. You can't blame that on anybody outside of your own relationship. A man would be able to take responsibility of that. But yet again, you see what pigs can do.
They're cult leaders. They have this weird, cultish, toxic following to hate Phil, hate Phil, hate Phil. And you might say, where did it come from? Originally, it came from things like This Is How You Don't Play, making it virally popular to crap on Darkside Phil. But
no,
when people...
let's give credit where credit's due. First off, calling us cult leaders is weird because all we do is present you the bullshit that you say. I'm not asking any of you to agree with me. If anything, I would actually kind of appreciate, as I'm sure most people would, if you didn't. If you actually see that there's something that goes against the narrative that I'm putting out, or my thought process, or however you want to word it, then by all means. And you have the freedom here to do that. Not because I'm so fucking merciful that I allow you to do it. That's how a point of contact happens. That's how a conversation is built up. He doesn't want that. That's why the comment section has been dead over there for 5+ fucking years, or whatever the case may be. And I'll get into that part later, because that shit's hilarious. Because that right there is the ultimate karma. Crying and complaining like a bitch over super thanks for all them years, and then look at what happened. Pussy. Anyway. Sorry. Holy shit. But that was so lame. He deserves that shit, though. He deserves that shit. Anyway. But there is no cultish-like mentality as it pertains to that. If they really wanted to go over there and watch you, then go ahead. If they really want to go over and watch another detractor, yet again, go ahead. No one's losing sleep over any of that. So it's no bigger of a deal than getting up to go to work every day. Something that you know very little about, since all you want to do is sit down, play games, and have fun. And not pay your bills on time. And file for bankruptcy. Like, how the fuck do you file for bankruptcy? Excuse me, hold on a second. How do you file for bankruptcy, right? And how do you default, I should say, on the amounts that you defaulted when you could have paid those things multiple times over? How is it that an idiot who was making over $100,000 a year, right, and at one time making $250,000 a year, still run up credit card bills and then carry those credit card bills over for multiple years? How does that work? How does an idiot who made so much money, right, more money than he could have ever made doing anything else, right, not pay off the goddamn condo in Connecticut so he can at least break even, and then sell that bitch, and then go ahead and actually get him a house that he can afford? Let's go even further. How is this son of a bitch gonna rip a girl from her fucking family, right, move her all the way across country, and not have her get her license or fucking finish her education before making that move? And then you could probably forgive some of that, even though you probably shouldn't, but you can probably forgive some of that. But then, not even have this chick learn how to edit or do anything to help contribute to the business that they both profit from. If she didn't want to get her education, fine. If she wasn't interested in getting a job or learning how to drive or whatever the situation is, that's not fine, actually. She should have at least gotten a license. You know what I'm saying? She should have gotten it way sooner than she did, but whatever. But if you want to overlook that, so be it. But you couldn't have had this chick go online and look at, meaning Panda, you couldn't have had her go online, look at some YouTube videos on how to edit, and have her edit your videos for you? No, you sat there and vegetated in your office, right? And went out of your way to spend as least amount of time with that chick as possible. Because those sexual encounters that you were having were disappointing. And you were probably tired of her, or ashamed, one of the two, of her kind of giving you the pity pat saying, don't worry, Phil, it'll be better next time. Knowing damn well that when you roll over, it's not going to be. And she knew it too. And yet that woman loved you enough to stand by your bitch ass. And then when you proved to be the failure that you inevitably always proved to be, she went out there and got a job. And learned that there was more out there than just Dark Side Phil. And wanted you to be better. You know what I'm saying? Be a better man. Not just for her, but for yourself. And then you still fail at that. And then she picks up and leaves you. I'll leave the rest of that stuff out for right now because there's so much to go into. How do you fail like that? How do you just utterly fucking fail like that? And that's exactly how his relationship fell apart. Utter fucking failure. How? Just reasonably, how? And then, this is the same guy who comes up here on stream every fucking day, especially during the vestry. Oh, let's definitely during the vestry. I'm gonna try not to go too far off the tracks on this shit. But during the vestry, this idiot put out the edict that it's an us versus them type thing. They don't want to see the vestry continue. They don't want to see me succeed. So when you're giving me that $100 to hit this vestry, you're telling the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics to fuck you. We support Phil. We love Phil, and we want him to continue to keep going. So this idea that it was the detractors who started this us versus them mentality is, well, it's not true, and I don't think anybody really believes it. DSP is the one who started that. And in truth, it was people like Sidella and Swaggins and all that were perpetrating that long before the vestry. Big ups to Milk and Cookies, by the way. I miss you, baby. How about that nonsense? But he wants to talk about cult leader. This is the same idiot that when LSB put out his part, well, sadly, his cult video, it was supposed to be multiple parts, but it is what it is. When he put out his cult video, DSP for the weeks following was unhinged as fuck. Couldn't even keep his anger under wraps. Because you know he saw that video, and he knows he got exposed. Because a lot of the tendencies of, excuse me, of a Jim Jones, for example, not the rapper. You know what I'm saying? Over the People's Temple, and whatnot. And the massacre that ended up coming later. Like, you listen to some of Jim Jones's bullshit and listen to some of DSP shit, and it's not too fucking far off. The hate mongering, that it's us versus the world, we need to stick together, you guys need to continue to work hard and contribute so we can keep this paradise, this whole illusion, if you will, of if this dies out, what are you guys going to do? You guys are going to all fall with it. So you have to keep this thing going. You have to keep giving me money. You have to keep supporting the streams. You have to even support me with the videos with the ad revenue. Because if you don't, I'm going to go away. And if I do go away, what are you guys going to do? You're telling me that none of you who will follow DSP's content for any period of time have never heard any of that. But apparently the detractor community are actually the cult leaders. That's amazing.
Saw that innocent, maybe not necessarily harmful videos like that were becoming popular. They said, well, how can I push that further to make myself benefit? And they became leaders of groups of crazy conspiracy theorist people to benefit from that. You see, they're basically swindlers. They're the ultimate, the people who lead these cults in real life because they're just trying to get something out of it. That's literally what they, whether it's for ego, whether it's for actual money, whatever it may be, that's who these people are.
He said ego and money, not me. I was going to say it, but since he said it for me, here, let me bring that part back.
They're basically swindlers. They're the ultimate, you know, the people who lead these cults in real life because they're just trying to get something out of it. That's literally what they, whether it's for ego, whether it's for actual money, whatever it may be, that's who these people are. And they're absolutely taking advantage of the people who watch their content and milking them. 100%. That's why they do it. They're not doing it because they believe all of that shit. They factually say things that are wrong. They've outright made videos saying, Dark Side Phil rage quits. When I didn't rage quit, I'm still playing the game.
Now, keep in mind, right? This tard knows that there's a fucking there's actually two parts of it. But the first part of it, I think, is like 7 or 8 hours. 7 or 8 fucking hours of him just rage quitting game after game after game. Matter of fact, one of the members here at GTG Network Productions told me about this a while ago. And I'll actually have them forward me the email because I actually want to see it again. Someone had actually reached out and had taken one of his playthroughs, I think, and diluted that shit down to like 7 minutes or some shit. Like, it's kind of a thing. I will actually look for that video. I will look for that. I had plans for that video for something too, by the way. I don't know if it was something I had for it on stream or. I know I had a video idea for it. Either way, I'm gonna look for that video, and if I can't find that video, I will reach out to the person who originally made it. Apologies in advance if I didn't get a chance to touch base with you at the time that this comes out, and I'll see if the video still exists, and if I can get my hands back on it, and you can see for yourself exactly how worthless, how useless a DSP playthrough fucking is. I will definitely fucking do that. Because it's something that you need to see, I think. People definitely need to see it. Let's continue.
They literally make shit up daily to get that insanely gullible, stupid, convincible audience to go along with the new negative thing they're saying to make a buck. Or to get over. Or to be more popular. Get the clicks.
And this is why other content creators... transitioning from the rage quit stuff for a second. This is why other content creators pop up on DSP, I think, more than ever. I think it's one of the many reasons, I should say, is that DSP is so quick and he's so, I wouldn't say vicious, but I guess for a pig can be vicious to some degree. It's better bacon if you ask me. But anyway, he can be so vicious to the people who he feels elevate those detractors, trolls, haters, and critics, right? Who keep spreading the word that Phil's a piece of shit and everything, which he is. That he puts them down, even though those are the people that he should be trying to get on his side. But he can't. He wants them. He wants those people to be on his side because of the very reasons that he just told you. The fact that he believes they're stupid, that they're gullible, that they're brainless, whatever the case may be. Those are perfect victims, if you will, for him and his bullshit. For the pig gnosis. That's exactly what he wants. Because he needs to replace the idiots that he currently has. But he can't. So that's exactly what he wants. But you're not gonna get people to, you're not gonna appeal to people by calling them these things. But the thing is when DSP calls these people idiots, gullible, yada 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 yada, he's actually doing it to try to challenge those people to come over and watch his content and actually give him a fair shot. But why would they do that when they can go to Raw DSP? They can go to the Raw DSP channel and see the whole stream right there. And it's no different. An unwashed, filthy pig is an unwashed, filthy pig, no matter what the median is. Period. But back to my original point. He's insulting these people as a way of trying to challenge them to come over there and actually give him a chance. Which is ironic because doesn't he say that he gets emails all the time saying that, oh, I used to be a detractor, or I used to be someone who watched detractor content and I realized after all these years that they were lying or they weren't giving you the benefit of the doubt, and now I've watched your content and I really like it and now I'm a fan. There's a couple of times a year he says that shit, especially around the holidays. He likes to say that shit. Where are these supposed fans at? Where is this silent majority at to support you when you haven't hit a tips goal in the last couple days, or whatever the case may be? Just throwing it out there.
The sub, whatever it may be, okay? And this is a very sad group because they literally want to see me suffer, despite the fact that the reasons behind it are not real. And the problem with that is you can't fight that. How do you fight complete nonsensical insanity? You can't convince them anything factual because they believe nonsense on a daily basis. You know, if anything, it should be someone like YouTube or Twitch who's looking at shit like that and saying, this person's a shit stirrer. All they do is talk shit and literally have no productive content. All they're here to do is hurt and get over by crapping on someone. That is
now,
not...
ironically enough, this is the same shit that Rich and Monday Matt tried to say some years ago too. Especially Monday Matt. Here's the problem with that. If YouTube really was to take the stance that DSP is asking for, he would get booted. Wings too. I think there's probably a lot of content creators who are lol cows who would get booted before Detractors would. And he don't see it. When you go back and you actually look at DSP's content, as I said earlier about that individual who diluted his gameplay down to this like 6 or 7 minutes, there's nothing there of substance. It's the type of shit that shouldn't be on YouTube, quote unquote, as it pertains to his own standards. Matter of fact, that's the reason why so many of his videos get demonetized. And he knows it. And what is that? His absolute vitriol that he's sitting there spewing at the chat because someone got him triggered. Just because you're playing kids' games doesn't mean that YouTube should promote you to a child audience, which is exactly what he wants. It's what he's wanted for years. But his fucking language is come back to haunt him. And he's too stupid to understand how the algorithm works, right? To pick up on that. And it was too hard to figure out back in 2016, because it was really late 2016 when he left back to Twitch. He was fully forced to go all the way in with it in 2017 when he got himself kicked off of Machinima in spectacular fashion, by the way. Absolute spectacular fashion. He's been, when he couldn't tap back into getting younger victims again, not trying to make it sound like it's anything more than that, he ran over there to Twitch. And what happened over there? Nothing. He was able to attract the same dents that he already had, and a few of them who remembered him from back in the day, and yet again, most of them ended up abandoning him at one time or another anyway. And that's the reason why he keeps bitching and complaining about gifted memberships over here on YouTube. He thinks he's going to get, what, 900 fucking gifted subs or whatever again? No, because there is no YouTube Prime, if you will, or let me reword that. Since YouTube Prime doesn't have a given membership feature within the YouTube Premium package, he's not going to benefit the way he thinks he is. Prime was set up to not just bring people onto the site, but to keep them there. YouTube's system isn't built like that. And to be honest with you, not to say that YouTube won't eventually convert over to it, but what I'm saying is YouTube has no incentive of doing something like that yet. Yet, keyword. So it'll take time for it. It's going to take a lot of time. By then, he should go back to Twitch, but he can't. I guarantee you he's tried to apply for his Twitch partnership, but he didn't get it. Clearly, he didn't get it. So, it is what it was. So he has no choice. And all he's doing is demanding that YouTube become the new Twitch. Or become old Twitch, whatever. And YouTube doesn't need to move to that. They don't have to move that way. And if this guy was so goddamn relevant, if his content was so worthy of the attention that it deserves, why hasn't YouTube offered him a contract? A real contract, by the way. Not giving him an opportunity to profit on their website, which is exactly what Twitch did. Anybody who can hold an audience over there can be partnered. Especially now, after they did the purge and shit, because clearly there was all kinds of problems, there was all kinds of prejudice going on, and yada, yada, yada. But they cleaned all that shit up now because they need to try to hold on to people, and more importantly, Twitch needs to develop new people. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. Why hasn't YouTube offered him a real contract? Why didn't Twitch offer him a real contract? And I mean, what I mean by a real contract is a contract that actually has money tied to it. Hey, we're going to pay you this amount a year to to stream exclusively on Twitch. He never had that contract. He was no different than anybody else. He really wasn't. And that's why when he eventually lost that partnership, it kind of made sense. He was dead weight. And because the people who were trying to look out for him or were trying to save him or whatever the case may be were long gone, or they were finally able to purge them, there was no need to keep him. And that's what really hurts his feelings about that Twitch situation, is that they relegated him to being useless, to being not needed. And he's been butthurt about it ever since.
Content that should be allowed. In reality, outside of the realm of the internet, it's not. People get sued all the time for defamation or slander, and there's big court cases about it. You read about them in the media and everything, right? You can't just say and do whatever you want about someone and drag them through the mud and make shit up about them to get over yourself. It's not legal to do so. In India, you can't even say factual things about someone that's negative. I'm not even kidding. There's actually a law in India that even if someone factually did something bad, you can't say it in the public because it's considered defamatory, and you could sue them for it.
He wants to bring up India. Isn't this the same idiot who said that he didn't want to shop at Walmart because he didn't want old fruit or cheap fruit that's from other countries and whatnot, and God knows, what kind of condition they're in when it finally gets to him, and that's why he only wanted to support people or support markets and businesses that were homegrown or local. But now he wants to bring up India over some, not even obscure, to him it's obscure, to some law that really has no relevance to him and that he could give two fucks about anyway. What sense does that make? If he wants to talk about India, fair enough. Let's talk about all the rape that happens in India and no one does anything doesn't do anything about it. Let's talk about how slavery is still a thing over there in India and whatnot. Let's talk about all the poverty that goes on in India. You want to keep talking about India? Let's talk about India for a minute. If you really want to go that route. Oh, shit that you don't know nothing about. Oh, you don't care because you're not the same skin color and you're in your little hut. It's not even a hut, but you're in your little spot in fucking Seattle, Washington, or just outside of Seattle, and you don't care about any of that. There is nonsense that happens here in the United States that could easily have fit your argument if you, read. Not some trending bullshit on Twitter, if it was even trending, which I assume it was. There's all kinds of shit that happens in fucking India. There's all kinds of shit that happens all over the world. But you want to go ahead and pluck India out of the trending section, right? To go ahead and fit your little argument. Wow.
That's fucking crazy in my opinion, by the way. But the point I'm making here is, this whole era of internet content creation has opened the door to like the Wild West of this kind of shit. There's no regulation, there's no protections against it, and sadly, I've become one of the people who's been a major victim of this kind of internet ire, where something as innocent as this is how you don't play, make fun of that how Phil plays games because he's not very good at them, turned into Phil isn't the most evil, lying, cheating, dishonest person on the internet, and every day he's breaking laws and doing terrible things to people all around him, so you should hate on him constantly, but by the way, watch my content and give me clicks and likes and send me money on my live streams and do this and do that. Wait, what? Where did that part come in?
Well, let's talk about that a little bit if you don't mind me asking. If you don't mind me interjecting, I should say. An innocent thing like this is how you don't play turned into this hatriarchy, if you will. The people calling me this and saying I'm dishonest and saying this and saying that. Aren't you the one who said that because Evil AJ made This Is How You Don't Play, that you were scared? You were actually scared that Evil AJ may come to your house and try to murder you? This was back when he was in Connecticut. You were the one who said that. You were the one who demonized people who made This Is How You Don't Play and who had a critical opinion of you of any type of way. You were the one who tried to demonize them, and more importantly, demonize what they do. And then you got, what's the term? It's in Vampire Masquerade, Diablerized, and then you end up getting Diablerized for it. But you're the one who ended up bringing that whole situation up. You're the one who did that. This is all of your own creation. You could have easily have let This Is How You Don't Play go, or just let it be, I should say, and move on with it. No, you had to take the video down, right? And then you tried to demonize Evil AJ. And then Evil AJ kept making them, and then other people kept making them. Because not only was it funny, because it is, it's super funny, but it's also really good content. It was better content than the raw shit that you were producing. But you were the one who did it. You set yourself up for all that. You literally set yourself up for failure. In one of the most impressive ways, I think. You let that one video basically start the initial wave that ended up essentially drowning you out. You did that. Because by demonizing it, and by demonizing him, you made more people want to go over there and see it. Which only exposed you for being the fraud, poser, untalented person that you really are. Which is what really hurt you. And then people started to take a critical look at, well, if it's like that with Metal Gear, what other games has he been shit at? Oh, all of them. Oh, let's go over there and cut it all up. Let's see what we can make out of it. And they did. It takes way more work to put a This Is How You Don't Play together than it ever does for DSP to get up and stream for a month. And I mean that. And it's funny how he brings up the term the Wild West. What about when it was the Wild West back in his day, when he could sit there and rip off other people, and he was stealing Howard Stern's jokes, right? And he was demanding, really, people to click the ads on his videos and shit so he can get all that money and whatnot, because he lost his fucking job because he was a fucking moron and thought because his daddy worked there for a long time, he had privileges, he had clout, and for whatever reason thought he couldn't get fired. So it was okay when it was the Wild West and it was all milk and honey back in his day. But now that, for detractors, trolls, haters, and critics, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't say it's milk and honey, but it's certainly it can be a very prosperous time for those who are willing to do it. All of a sudden it's a problem. It was funny how when DSP used to go ahead and shit on, yet again, other content creators, game publishers, and game developers, it was okay. It was his opinion. When people shit on him, using his footage, using his words to back up what they're saying, to back up their criticisms, their speculations, and whatever else, oh, it's defamatory. It's slander. And he keep talking about court this, court that. If you really want to take someone to court, take someone to court. You can't because you're broke. You can't do that because you got a gambling habit. You got a gambling addiction. You got a drinking problem. You got a spending. You definitely got a spending addiction. You can't afford to take nobody to court. You would rather sit there and play on some lame ass game that's going to mean jack shit in a few years to keep your frail little ego together, instead of, I don't know, pay off your fucking house. I don't know, make some improvements to your house. I don't know, maybe do something better for you and your wife and your son Jasper. You keep talking about wanting to go out on a honeymoon. You keep talking about doing this and doing that. It sounds like you're waiting for someone to pay for it. Not you, though. You don't want to pay for it, but it sounds like you're waiting for someone else to pay for
it. Because the truth of the matter is, if you were out to just expose someone doing something wrong, you wouldn't monetize it. You would just do the right thing. But instead, you're monetizing every piece of it. You're accepting all these contributions and donations. That's why you're doing it.
Okay, so I don't even know why we want to play this angle, but all right, fair enough. You want to go the SOK route? Let's go the SOK route. Okay, so for those people who don't monetize their content and still shit on you, what? Do they get a free pass? And for the people who do monetize their content, what should they do? Should it be like a Wings of Redemption thing, and allegedly, in air quotes, they should pay you tribute? It's just all lame. At the end of the day, that's all lame. None of that's relevant. Whether you can't, let's reword that. I won't tell you can't. To base the validity of what someone says on whether they're profiting or not is completely and solely up to the person who's ingesting the content. It's really what it comes down to be honest with you. It's based completely on you. That doesn't make what I will say is, just because someone profits off of Dark Side Phil does not mean what they say is any less true, or doesn't have any less or any more validity than someone who doesn't. It proves nothing. And if nothing else, if SOK hasn't taught you that shit, then the situation with what happened with Lean and what happened with Lummox as it pertains to the Wings troll community should tell you that. Just because those individuals were allegedly profiting from their content doesn't take away any of the validity from their content. It doesn't. If that was the case, they wouldn't have prospered the way they did. They wouldn't have had all those people who were big upping them and who were watching their content and who were spreading that shit around, or whatever the case may be. If you want to focus on that one little tidbit of it, then that's on you. In a lot of ways, that would make you just as short-sighted as a Wings or a fucking low-tier God or DSP or whatever the case may be. And it's a lame-ass argument. It's always been lame. And the fact that shit was able to get away with... The fact that SOK got away with that shit for as long as they did, while they, in turn, profited, whether the money goes to charity or back into your stream for better equipment or to in your pocket for whatever the case may be. Profiting is profiting. Period. Whether it goes in your pocket or anywhere else, it's still profiting. If it was wrong for everybody else, then it should have been wrong for them. And vice versa. And it wasn't. People were quick to go ahead and turn a blind eye to that shit for whatever reason. And for whatever reason, that shit propagates all the way till today, which is weird. Because what restreamer, well, as far as I know, what restreamer, it does not collect at least super chats or whatever the case may be. And why shouldn't they? And why shouldn't they? Jesus Christ, didn't, what's that kid's name? Sorry, didn't mean to say it like that. That dude's name, Almighty Frogger? How many times did he fucking get demonetized for no goddamn reason? And for what? I've watched some of his streams before. Brings like good content. So what did he deserve demonetization for? Amongst other people. There's a lot of people who got demonetized for bullshit reasons. And like I said, if you don't want to contribute to the content, then don't. If you don't want to send their super chats and everything, don't. No one's begging you for it as far as I know. And if you don't want to fucking see an ad, or if you don't want to help with ad revenue or give ad revenue or contribute to it, then fucking put ad block on like everybody else and keep it pushing. He tries to make it sound like that literally these detractors, trolls, haters, and critics have a knife up to your throat yet again and whatnot, trying to squeeze every last dime out of you or out of the audience or their fan base or whatever the case may be, which is ironic because it is, not figuratively speaking, but you know what I mean, that is something that he does on the regular. He does that every fucking day. Imagine that. He does that every goddamn day.
Honest piece of shit. Let's be honest here. How many of my major detractors out there are not benefiting from it in some way? Are you out of your mind? They're doing it for a reason. And again, they are taking advantage of a large group of people on the internet that have banded together, finding a sense of belonging, a sense of the same mindset. You know, when people think the same way.
He's literally describing his own community, which is hilarious.
Group together. So if everyone has this weird groupthink mentality that I'm bad, right? They're going to flock together. And now where do we rally? On the people who are restreaming and making fun of Phil constantly. On the people who are making defamatory videos about Phil constantly. Well, is any of it true? Well, it must be. I just want to believe it. Who cares if any of it's substantiated? We'll just believe it. Phil rage quit that game, but I'm still playing the game. Phil rage quit that game. Phil was never good at Street Fighter. But what about all these years of tournament history that's well documented on the internet? Phil was never good at Street Fighter. And they actually revel in that shit, you know? So, yeah, Zoya, that's the three groups, you know? I don't believe that everyone out there absolutely...
It's funny, too, and this is how fragile his legacy is. Just as fragile as his business. Because if you getting kicked off of Twitch or YouTube, or if him losing his PayPal, for example, if any of these things happen or continues to happen, his business is destroyed. How fragile... Well, no, let's reword that. How stable is your fucking business then? If you have a couple of bad days, let's reword that. If you have a few bad days where contributions are low and you're not making enough money, right? How does that result to you possibly starving on your day off? Or you and your wife resorted to eating cold cuts and shit? Let's continue. So these people flock together, right? And run to the restreamers, and they throw all this money at them, and they laugh at you, and all this, that, and the third, and they're all bad people. If, first off, you've just said that none of these people are ever going to convert to you. They're never going to see things your way, right? Or they're never going to want to hear the truth or whatever bullshit that you've come up with. So why do you care? These are people, I don't want to say it this way, but this is how he talks about them. You consider these people undesirables, right? These are people who have no use for you, have no use to you, and never will, right? So they're not going. If they're not going to give you money, and if they're not going to spread the gospel, the Gouty gospel, they're no help to you. So what's the point of having them around? You told Tevin. Well, you said that on a Tevin stream once. Well, you said that on stream, and Tevin was restreaming you, and you were basically reacting. Not reacting. You were reacting. You were basically replying to what was being said. You said you didn't want the type of people that Tevin attracts. They're terrible people. They're useless. They're never gonna give you money or support you in any which way. What's the fucking point? Why do you care where why do you care where these people go and who they decide to support and where they rally at? Why does that matter to you? You're already on record of saying you don't care about these people. These people aren't useful to you. So where do you care where they go? And more importantly, who the fuck are you to care about what they do with their money? In the exact same way you say why people like me shouldn't care about your money or what you do with it. I mean, you can drink yourself stupid all you want. You can play WWE until you lose your house and you lose your wife with her. I give no fucks. You can spin yourself right into the ground. For all I care. I'm going to be there to laugh at it, though. Definitely be there to report on it. And then I'm going to keep it pushing. I think it's dishonest that you would lie to people and say that you need to save your house, you need money for fucking food and supplies. I think it's dishonest and disgusting that you lie about blatant shit like that when in actuality you're just feeding your own habits and addictions. But I have the right to say that, just as anybody else. The fact that you're mad that people profit off of you because you're too stupid to profit off of yourself is all on you. And that's what you're really upset about. You're upset that all these people have all this charisma, right? That are charismatic, they're interesting. They have something more to them than being some loser who just plays video games on the internet and knows nothing else. And even then, you're bad at that, which is amazing. Imagine you doing something for 14 years and just being so bad at it that people equate to you being day one or level one or stage one. Or as I said on stream, you're not even out of the cartridge. You haven't even come out of the box. But that's on you. That's your fault. That's nobody else's. No one held you down. No one held you back. You held yourself back. DSP is always going to be his greatest detractor. You give Darkside Phil enough rope and he'll hang himself. I've said that since day one. And he has not done anything to dispel that. Not once. He is the architect of his own demise. And at the end of the day, and at the end period, he will blame other people to the end. It's all he knows. And this right here is just another bitch fest that kind of proves it. How does a grown man sound blaming other people for his own failures? The same failures that he's not even man enough to address, because whenever he's had a problem in life, he's always chosen to run from it. Or waited until, or decided to cower in a corner and hope that someone else will step in and pick up the pieces. But he has the nerve to call other people cultists. He has the nerve of saying other people are being dishonest or other people are assholes because they profit. He doesn't make money playing video games. He makes money begging. And look at him. Take a very good look at that absolute disgusting example of a human being. And I use that term loosely because he's barely human. He's more like a fucking slug at this point. This right here is supposed to be success? This right here is a pillar of the fucking FGC community? Or ever was? This guy was a pillar of the fighting game community? He never contributes shit to shit. He was always out for himself. He's never cared about anything else but himself. It's all he knows. That's why it's all he does. But he has the nerve to tell other people, or he has the nerve to say that other people are out for themselves. And yet, where's the failure that these people demonstrate, or these people should be demonstrating, that he demonstrates on a regular basis? DSP, Darkside Phil Brunel is failure incarnate. I promise you. It's all he'll ever be. And he knows it. And he hates it. But he's too lazy and too stupid to stop it. Because to stop it will require change. And it's something that's just not in his repertoire. He's too scared of it. He would much rather believe that this is 2011, right, than it actually being 2022. And that's how he lives. And that's why he appears like he's fucking crazy. And that's why there's so many people at his goddamn neck every goddamn day. Because they can see how nutty he is. And even if they wanted to help him, they can't. You can't help someone who's not willing to help himself. And the only way DSP is going to ever be able to help himself is he has to accept the fact that he's a failure. He has to accept that, and he can't. And he won't. So he would rather drag everybody else down with him, right, than to actually basically dig himself out of it. Or crawl himself or climb himself out of the pit that he's built for himself. But he's too scared to do that. And any person who cannot be honest with themselves, how the hell are they ever going to be honest with you?
Wants to see me suffer. I think that there is a group of people that want to see me be challenged. They feel that when I'm playing a game, to see that level of challenge adds to the enjoyment because there's a sense of overcoming an obstacle. It's not steamrolling constantly. And I agree to some extent with that. But there's a large group of people out there that are being misled by essentially a bunch of cult leaders who are doing this to make a buck on their behalf. And these people need to have their eyes open and say, wow, these people have been using us for years and it's getting worse and worse. Why are we becoming more and more gullible on a daily basis? In the scope of things, all right, I am absolutely positively tiny. I am small potatoes. I don't make a ton of money. I'm definitely not hugely popular. Why do you think these people hyper-focus on me? Right? Even if every possible thing they were saying about me was true, which it is not, the vast majority of what they say about me is false. But even if it were all true, who fucking cares with how small of a guy I am on the internet? There are people out there that are doing way worse things. On a daily basis, they're hurting people. They're lying to their audience. I've explained to you guys many times, that over the years, the things that is happening with the gaming community, people who have become paid shills, literally paid advertisements for games, they're doing way more harm to the public at large than anything I've ever done. I'm the antithesis of the shit that they do to harm every day, yet somehow they make me out to be the villain. Why? I'll tell you why. Because those people aren't doing it because they feel like they're exposing something great or bad. They're doing it because they found a way to monetize it. That's why. The day that everyone who dislikes me turns ads off, stops accepting donations, stops getting super chats, super stickers, cheers, subs, and monetary donations, is the day that it all goes away. Because
you see how he, like I said, he tried to make this into a challenge? He first tried to challenge the audience, or the audiences, or fan bases of the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics. When he thinks that's not going to get over, now he's going to try to challenge the detractors themselves. Or whatever, you know what I'm saying, detractors, trolls, haters, and critics. See if they can go ahead and start demonetizing themselves. Because he looks at it, it goes back to the 3 Ds. This is an old Medicare video. It was demonetize, demotivate, and then deplatform. Excuse me. And I'm pretty confident that it's in that. I'm pretty confident it's in that order. That's literally what he's trying to pignosis right here. Here's the thing. It's been said, and it was true. It's true now as it was true then. If DSP couldn't make money doing this, he wouldn't do it. Period. The whole concept that he likes to say, and Rich said it too, that I did this for all these years and I didn't make a single dime doing it. It's because you couldn't. It was because they couldn't make money doing it at the time. That's the reason why. If you take this back to 2010 and DSP could never profit from any of this, he wouldn't do it. He might have been in it for a couple more years and he'd eventually have given up. He only stuck with it for as long as he did because there was going to be profitability in it. And he knew it. As a lot of people did. That's the only reason. So, yet again, we got some more projection here. You think DSP likes streaming? He don't. If DSP could go back to the old formula, if you will, of eating out of his trough, putting up 10, 15-minute videos, 30 or 50 of those a day, and make $200,000 a year, he would do it. He hates streaming because he hates interacting with people. He just wants your money. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about what you want. He wants to be put in a situation where he can produce whatever slop he decides to produce, and you have no choice but to accept it. If you look back at his early YouTube career, he did not care about giving you guys a choice. The choice was always his, and you just accept what he puts out. And he was okay drinking himself stupid, excuse me, for some of those playthroughs, but more importantly, sitting there and policing that comment section. I think he ended up pulling some type of he was lethargic when he did it. I think he very much was he's a mark for himself. So any type of power that he can muster, he can do it. I mean, he'll do it. That's why lean-in manual bans are a thing. It's all it is. So the very thing he's accusing people for, if he was in a position where he couldn't make money doing this, he wouldn't do it either. So what's his excuse? And this whole concept of it being a business, how is it a business when there's no contract? You know what I'm saying? There's no guaranteed money out of this. If you went to talk to another streamer or another YouTuber and you talked about business, you hear talks of sponsorships, brand deals, guaranteed money contracts, things that he has not seen and he'll never get. People like Dr. Disrespect were doing business and they got fucked. Not DSP. He's another cog in the wheel. He's just another part of the machine that is slowly but surely being phased out because he's outlived his usefulness. And that's really what it comes down to. It's not about being entertaining. It's not about him providing anything of substance. He's slowly but surely losing his purpose, or the purpose that other people set upon him, because he wasn't man enough to do it himself. He never came into this trying to build something. Oh, I can make a lot of money by putting shit online in large chunks, no problem. I can do that. And that's all it's ever been, and it's all it ever will be. Streaming is merely a means to an end. He doesn't give a shit about those people. Never have, never will. When you're taking disability checks from people who you know need that money, right? All jokes aside, when you're taking disability checks from people that you know need that money, and then have the nerve to come back the next day and say, I need more money, knowing damn well these people ain't dropped certainly money that should have never been spent on you, there's a problem. There's a fucking problem. When Jax dropped that $1,000 on that Street Fighter stream, and then the next day DSP came out with the goal saying, I need money, I really need help, please support. That should have woke Jax's ass up. He should have realized your money didn't mean shit. You paid $500 an hour to essentially be, I cannot even say the man, but to be relevant on a stream for 2 hours. And that was it. And he forgot your donation almost as quickly as you gave it. And I would guarantee you that at least 3/4 of that was spent that night. But he has the nerve to say that other people are dishonest? That other people are out for profit and nothing else? This is the same ass clown who sat there and fucking forced people to pay, what, $2,100 to show them his cat. Wasn't this the same ass clown who was charging, what? It must have been over $200 for him to put on a pair of jeans? This is the same idiot who plays Mr. Potato Head, or wants to play Mr. Potato Head, on a daily basis. Because he still has an itch for that vest streak money. The same vest streak money that he fucked up. The same vest streak money that he fucked up. Because he was tired of people having control over him, and he thought he could try to take it back. Knowing damn well that his addictions is what really is in control. Because when you humiliate yourself on stream the way Darkside Phil is, there must be something wrong with you. Clearly, there must be something wrong with you. And I don't think that's speculation. I'm pretty confident that's a fact.
All about in the modern era. It ain't about hating Phil. It's about taking advantage about a bunch of gullible people who want to believe whatever you tell them because they got this sense of community and worth around it. And then you milk them for all they're worth because you think that they're stupid and you don't respect your audience. That's exactly what these people have been doing all along.
And yet again, that's Darkside Phil in a nutshell. That's exactly what he... And the fact that no one in his audience picked up on that or had nothing to say about it shocks me. Not really.
Alrighty then. Zoya did another super chat. Said it's crazy. As a new reviewer, I didn't know how bad the trolling can be. Yeah, and it's sad, and there's nothing I can do about it. I've tried for years to reason with people. I've tried to counter some of the crazy stuff that's said about me. But the thing is, when you have a group of people that believe anything, and they want to believe anything, you can't ever make them see reason. Because at any moment, someone will just make something else up, and that's the new thing that's talked about constantly. So, there's not much I can do to counter that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I could sit here and do an entire stream. Here's the debunking stream. And I'll tell you the truth behind what happened here and the truth about what happened here. But then there's 10 other things that come up, so it doesn't matter. So there's no point in addressing any of it. Only Ice Coffee did a super chat. Saying the sad part about this is the trolls will clip this rant and take it out of context and make money on your content. Yeah, because here's what they'll do. I can tell you exactly what they're going to do because they do it so much that now it's just a fucking tried-ass formula. They'll take what I just said and they'll say, you see, but everything that Phil just said can be applied to himself and here's how. And then they'll show a million defamatory things that aren't true about me and claim that I'm a hypocrite. And they'll say, well, here's the evidence. And there's no evidence. All it is conspiracy, leaks, bullshit. Stuff that's not corroborated and not factual. But they've
And how is it not corroborated? Just because you don't co-sign to it? Or maybe because you don't want to co-sign to it right now. 4 or 5 years from now, when it's safe, in air quotes, to go ahead and say, okay, this happened, but let me explain how it happened. Then it's okay then? Is that how this scenario is supposed to play out? It's interesting how you know what this tried and true formula. That's what he wanted to say, but he didn't. But he made an inkling to it. It's interesting how you know how this tried and true formula is, and yet you don't know how to stop it. You just acknowledge that you are the problem. That you're going to sit there and take this rant. Why'd you even do the rant? Why did you even bother doing this if you know that it's just going to be clipped and then be used for profit? That it's going to be absorbed by the machine, right? To create substance or sustenance for everybody else or everything else. Why'd you even do it? Why'd you even do it? You're not rallying anybody around you. You got $27 right now out of 50. And you're far off from the membership goal. So how did you benefit from this? If he had pride, any man who has pride would know would see the flaw in this. It's all fodder, and it has no real value to anybody. Why would any man who has pride hurt themselves for little to no benefit at all? And any man who has pride, why would he open himself up to his enemies? Because you saying all this nonsense is going to give people a reason to go off and look at all this taboo, essentially, all this taboo content, and see what's really being said. Why would you open yourself up to that? Not even any man with pride or any person with pride, but why would anybody with some common sense draw any attention to negativity? Unless they needed that negativity. Unless they thrived off that negativity. Why would anybody challenge an audience that is not theirs by calling them idiots, calling them gullible, calling them fools, and believing that that's going to be enough to draw these people to them and give them a chance? Who in their right mind would think something like that would work? It's okay, I'll wait.
So many times over the years about me, they act like it's factual when it's not. They actually convince their communities to believe their own bullshit that they made up, and now it's a fact in their crazy minds, so you can't ever disprove them. You see what I'm saying? Now.
So now everybody's crazy because you don't believe the words of Darkside Phil. So there's no point in trying to save you. There's no point in trying to dispel anything or debunk anything, even though when he says he debunks stuff, he has no evidence. But semantics. There's no point in doing anything about anything because now, instead of them being idiots, gullible, and stupid, now they're crazy. And when you call someone crazy, that's dismissive. It means that they're too far gone. You've lost any value, if you will, so there's no point in even giving any more energy up. But then, if all these people are supposedly crazy or mentally ill, that's another dismissive thing he likes to say, why is it that all these people are still prospering off of you, right? And you're barely scraping by? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't that seem weird? That seems silly. That seems silly as shit. I remember when people were, well, I've watched enough videos, I should say, to remember this. I wasn't actually around at that time. I remember when people were saying that his content was so trash that you had to be crazy to sit there and watch it and think it was good. I remember people saying that his voice was fucking terrible and obnoxious. The snorting was out of fucking control. Who would want to subject themselves to that? That's crazy. Theoretically, subjecting yourself to all that snorting is crazy. By the way, I can say that for sure. Because I do it. So I know. That is pretty crazy. But yet again, how is it okay for him, but it's not okay for everybody else? And then yet again, excuse me, it's amazing how those people who were gullible idiots, right? Who have no rational minds of themselves, and they all want to do groupthink, and it's just a hive mind, have now gone from that and have graduated to now they're just crazy. They're absolutely crazy, useless people, and why bother trying to tell the truth or trying to clear the air about anything? Because they're crazy. They wouldn't even understand if you even told them. Even though he is on video, he's on stream, he's however you want to word the median, media, I should say, blatantly lying or being caught in lies and trying his best piggy squirm to get out, knowing damn well it only makes him look and sound worse. But everybody else is crazy, though.
I could have a legal document proving something about me, and I would show it to you, and they'd immediately say that's a doctored document. There's no way to prove that it's real. So what's the point of me ever saying anything? And anything I say and do, it could always be said that he's lying. Then there's no point in ever bothering with their nonsense. So I don't.
I don't, but yet this whole segment here was addressing that. First off, the person who had brought this question up, they should have immediately been banned if that was really the case. Or you should have told them to shut the fuck up. And you should have moved on with your fucking autistic schedule and then let that be that. But I don't address any of them, though. I don't think about any of them. I don't give any of them time or day. Yet but before that, he was calling everybody a cult leader, and he was and that they're all being taken advantage of. They're all being fleeced or finessed, if you will. That's probably the word you should use, Phil. They're all being finessed. What are you gonna do? But he don't care, though. Keep that in mind.
Oh, see, and I very well could, too. Top Op Smoke Puffa says, you should slander them instead. Start the information war. Phil strikes back hard. If I were ever to do what they do to me back to them, they would not survive.
Now this, ladies and gentlemen, if this was on stream, this would have been our gotcha moment. This right here is what I think is where I think the whole reaction thing really came about. This is our actual starting point. Remember, this is March 20th of 2022. This is where I think he started to come up with the idea of doing reaction videos. Honestly. And going after down the rabbit hole and all that. Because at this point, he sees that he has nothing to lose, I think. He's not going to react to anything really hard-hitting, per se. But we'll see. we'll see. Because there's a lot of content out there that cuts really fucking deep, and he's going to have a hard time explaining it if he can do it at all. But I think this is where it was actually conceived. And this whole nonsense about it would not survive. Are you fucking stupid? Do you not see? The next time you're on a restream, take a real close look at some of the people that are in that restream. You're going to find some names in there of some very, very big content creators who are not detractors. These are people who make other content and shit. Very successful at it. And whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Who kind of peek in and whatnot, laugh it up and whatnot for a minute or so, and then they bounce out. And then they just watch it in the background or whatever the case may be. There are some real heavy hitters out there, is what I'm trying to say. Right? Some real heavy hitters. They would never take DSP's side on anything without proof. How the fuck is DSP going to expose anyone when he's not even man enough to stand up for himself? He's too lazy to stand up for himself. So how the fuck is he going to prove anything? That's why that whole debunking stream he did for Pro Jared back in a couple years ago, it wasn't even his list. That shit belonged to Dragon Killer. He pulled it off Dragon Killer's Twitter and didn't even debunk all the shit that was on that list. There was a bunch of stuff on there that he couldn't touch, and he knew it. He knew he couldn't dispel any of that shit. So he picked the easiest stuff that he thought he could get away with. And then what happened? You had assholes like me who went back and broke that shit down, and congratulations, you got fucked. Womp womp. And then he just kept limping along, hoping that his tweets were going to carry the day. Just like this whole shit with the Oscar thing, which is pathetic, by the way. Absolutely pathetic that you're retweeting your own tweet to try to build more attention up for it. It was a fluke. Anybody who reacts to anything, who's lucky enough, I should say, to react to anything at first, is going to get a buzz off of it. But that's it. And the way he makes the way he puts his statements out there, they're so open and closed that it doesn't even open up anything for a conversation. It doesn't allow any more conversation, I should say. You know what I'm saying? It's just a flat, lifeless statement. And a bunch of people hit it because it was the first one there and they moved the fuck on. And the fact that he thought it was going to translate to his YouTube and it was going to translate into more viewers and it was going to translate to more money is even more pathetic. Absolute pathetic. But that is the DSP way.
Not fucking survive. They would be buried. Because these people who usually do shit like this, actually, they're the worst ones. But I'm not that kind of person. I don't make toxic content. I'm not going to fuck around or go down that rabbit hole, that slippery slope. That is a bad place to be. And
now, this whole thing about not surviving, right? What happened with that thing with Superhound? You remember when he got you kicked off a Twitch that one time, and you sat there on your couch in your little unwashed vest, and you said, "I'm gonna find you," and whatnot. What happened to that shit? Oh, more empty threats, right? Okay, I got you. More broken promises, right? I got you. I'm sure Panda knows what that feels like.
Do it. I'm a positive content creator. I've definitely changed myself over the years from who I used to be. I purposely don't make that kind of content, and I don't want to. So I absolutely refuse to do what they do back to them. You know, they say fight fire with fire. Not if it means sacrificing who you are as a person and as a content creator, and I'm not going to do that shit.
Truth be told, though, you're not much of a person or a content creator, so what do you have to lose? Womp womp, which leads to where we're at right now.
Shit. Just did a super chat and says the following. I remember being tactically involved. Tacitly involved? In a way that is understood or implied without being directly stated. So he was involved in hate watching, meaning he watched me in a hateful manner but wasn't directly involved in the hate. Gotcha. Thank you. I had to look the word up. I actually didn't know what the word meant. I remember being tacitly involved in the hate watching right up until that they started attacking just to get a rise out of you. Then it got uncomfortable. And again, at one point, absolutely,
if that's the case, then you were probably in it too long already, to be honest with you. Like, if your breaking point were personal attacks, then you're probably already in it too long. Just like if you had a problem with people, and you should, this is because no one should put themselves in a position to break the law, I should say, to fucking get a gotcha moment on Phil. That's just my thought on it, though. Just like that, like if you really think, if you're one of those people who are like, okay, we're breaking the law now to try to get Phil, I think that's a little too much. And there's nothing wrong with that, like I said. But yet again, then you might have been in it a little too long because sooner or later it was going to eventually go this way. I'm not condoning what happened or whatnot. And I don't even know if it was really even worth it at the end of the day. I think the speculation that for years and years that was going about already proved that it already solidified that point. It's just people needed to actually prove it. They needed to have it solidified. And that's all well and good. Just, it's not worth getting arrested over, though. It's not worth putting yourself in a position where you could actually get in some real trouble for it. Not for this piece of shit. And this is coming from someone who makes fucking hours upon hours long videos about the dumb shit. You know what I'm saying? But even I would say that it's not worth getting arrested over. You know? Or jeopardizing your future over this dumb shit. That's a definite no-no. But to each their own, if you will. Now, granted, this is probably just a troll poll no matter what, so it is what it is. I mean, how comfortable is anybody with any of this, to be honest with you? Like, trolling is not something new. It's an old thing. And like I said, you go back to DSP Cult Leader, that's damn near since Phil's beginning. This isn't a new thing. It's just, it's evolved over time. It has changed up to where Phil is not comfortable with how it happens. He never liked it, but he's certainly not comfortable with it. He can't combat it. And there are people out there with better memories than him. He can't even remember his own lore. He can't even remember his own shit. And he lived it. Most people, like myself, are only reacting to it after the fact. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that that I can pinpoint shit better than him, and he lived it, and more importantly, he said it, is already crazy in itself. That's already, like, really silly. But then again, the dude don't have a life, which is the whole reason why this whole shit even exists in the first place. This whole complaint that he has exists because he has nothing else. This is a pastime. This is something that I choose to do when I feel like doing it. He has to live this. If he only makes $25, or let's say he only makes $50 in a day, he's fucked. I can throw 6 to 8 hours to him over 2 days, and I lose nothing at all. Especially if I'm having a good time doing it. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't do it. And that's the difference. He doesn't like the idea that people actually enjoy making content. So that's why he has to throw this profit thing up. What about all the dudes who got demonetized and still kept doing it? What about the people who don't profit off it and still keep doing it? He's mad that those people aren't fascinated in him. It's only in the dumb shit that he does. And that's all he's good for. No one cares about DSP, Darkside Phil Brunel. They only care about the dumb shit that he does and he says. He's a toy. He's a toy that has to wind himself up just to get out of bed, just to function. But it's other people, essentially, who have to actually continue to wind him, if you will, to actually make his ass dance. Or to make himself do whatever it is that he needs to do. If he didn't have detractors, trolls, haters, or critics, he'd be dead in the water. Which is an argument that is spoken about quite a bit. If detractors stopped doing content on him, wouldn't he just die out? Yeah, he would. But then again, if detractors wanted him to die out, they'd have done that shit years ago. It's the way of the world. It is what it is. And more importantly, he brought this all upon himself. It's because of segments like this that he brings attention to it, and people are going to have something to say about it. That's his fault. His lack of self-control has come back to haunt him. No one has to feel bad for him. I mean, Jesus Christ, he already has enough self-pity for himself.
Positively. The things that were said against me, I feel were true. At one point, it was, while Phil is, first of all, he refuses to improve his content, right? He doesn't implement anything that would make him a better gamer or a better content creator. Meaning, I didn't want to do direct capture. I didn't want to do live streaming. I didn't want to interact with my audience. I didn't want to do special events and things for my audience that they would benefit from. For the longest time, it was Phil sits in front of his TV with a camera right here, and he talks when he plays games, and it's the same thing every single fucking day. And I get that. That was a valid criticism. When I sat here and literally every waking moment of playing a game, I would complain and yell at a game director or a game developer, yes, that was a valid criticism. There was a lot of things about me back then that were quite embarrassing and bad as a content creator. It was also my shtick. That was the thing that a lot of people came to see me do, and that's what kept my audience coming back.
See what I told you? He's not even man enough to own up to it. He can't just be a man and say, you know what? I did this and I was wrong for it. It's, no, I did this. Yeah, I said this. Yeah, I did that. But that's what made me popular, dude. Or that was my gimmick. That was my work, if you will. That's how I got over with all you marks. So I don't understand why you took it so seriously, dudes. I don't get it. It was all just an act, bro.
They liked the shtick that I did. It's funny because some people say, was that a character? Was it a character? Well, what it was it was over-the-top reactions. Did I genuinely have some of the feelings that I expressed in those videos? Yes, but I was always kind of overdoing it and over-exaggerating it to get that reaction out of people, to get people to come back. If something's working and people like it and want to come back and see more, why not keep giving them what they want? You know what I'm saying? But what ended up happening was...
Because you end up like Darkside Phil now. That's exactly why. Yeah, he may have had the lure, if you will, out there to fucking this over-the-top asshole. He's not over-the-top, by the way. That's just... Well, he is. It's slightly exaggerated, as John and Howard said. But it's also a lot of... It is who he is. Yeah, you have this whole thing about the rage and everything that brings people back. But then when you started shitting... When he started directing that rage or whatever the case may be from the game to the audience themselves. That's what fucked him, and he's not man enough to admit that. He can go ahead and skirt past that bullshit, but he won't admit that that's what the problem was. That's what the real situation is. He turned his audience against him. And whatever it is that you're doing, it's not going to work forever. So maybe you should consider switching it up. And every time someone gave him a criticism, he shitted on them. He shitted on all of them. And he kept shitting on them. So the very things that he's admitting, I was wrong for, I did this, I did that, whatever. Oh, well, that was my mark. I mean, that was my persona, man. That was my stitch. That was my thing. So I don't understand why, you guys are all upset about it. You guys, this is what you guys saw when you first got here. And when those people asked you to change, what did you do? You lashed out at them. Eventually turning them into, at least some of them, into the detractors that you have now. Because, truth be told, not every person who's a detractor was a DSP fan. So, let's put that out there. It should be already well known, but still, just to be on the safe side so we're covering our bases. You know what I'm saying? So, a lot of the OGs, I think, you could say that if they weren't DSP fans, they were certainly avid DSP watchers. But a lot of them, or a lot of people now especially, a lot of people in general, I think, are not actual DSP fans. He's known because of how notorious he is of being an asshole and a terrible gamer and whatnot. That's what really did it. And yet again, he's still not man enough to admit that. And how could you expect him to be?
Over time, everything else evolved, and not me. And that's where the rise of This Is How You Don't Play came from. People basically saying, Phil, your content is so outdated at this point because you absolutely refuse to change. You're the same guy 5 years later, and everyone else has moved on and doing different stuff, and you're not, right? They were absolutely positively correct. And it took me many years to figure this out. Even when I adopted direct capture and live streaming, I still refused to acknowledge my streaming audience for 4 fucking years. 4 more years that I didn't do it. It's like, what was I thinking? I was a fucking buffoon. Finally, in 2017, I started to get it. I had to get out of that.
It's kind of sick how he laughed at that. Give me a second. I'm going to bring that back. It's kind of sick that he would laugh at it like that and think that's funny, because there's nothing funny about that. On top of it, he's like, oh, I didn't realize it until 4 fucking years later in 2017. Oh, you mean when you got your bitch ass kicked off of Machinima and you basically had no choice but to beg to these people to give you money directly? Wow, Phil. That says a lot.
5 years later, and everyone else has moved on and doing different stuff, and you're not, right? They were absolutely positively correct. And it took me many years to figure this out. Even when I adopted direct capture and live streaming, I still refused to acknowledge my streaming audience for 4 fucking years. 4 more years that I didn't do it. It's like, what was I thinking? I was a fucking buffoon. Finally, in 2017, I started to get it. I had to get out of that mentality of being a YouTuber making offline videos and realize that the future is interaction with you guys. The future is having this organic chemistry, talking and having a fun time together live, and then having that
genuine... The reason why he became an interactive streamer is, 1, he got kicked off from Machinima. 2, to make money on Twitch, he kind of had no choice but to interact with people. Now, let's clear this up right now. He actually went back to Twitch at the end of 2016. That's when Twitch started implementing all these different ways of making money or whatnot. He basically, yet again, as I said earlier, he had no choice but to go all in 2017 because he literally talked himself out of his Machinima contract, which is fucking incredible. If he had just kept his mouth shut and gone over to Twitch nice and quietly and streamed over there and done the fucking ragamuffin bullshit that he do now, his typical pig in a blanket act that he does right now, he would have held on to his... I mean, he would have eventually lost his partnership, but he would have held it longer than what he would have held it longer than he did. But he's an idiot, you see, so he ended up doing himself in, which is rather poetic, if you will, to some degree. But it's also what he does. So this whole thing about, oh, I in 2017 I realized that I was taking you all for granted and I should listen to you. Oh, around the same time you knew that you figured out there was other ways on Twitch that you could take advantage of them, and how you fucked yourself out of Machinima, and then eventually fucked yourself out of Curse. You mean like that? I mean, keep in mind, Curse was in like 2018 though. But you know what I mean. He only started really paying attention to the audience because he had no choice. It was the only way he could profit off of them. It was the only way for his business to survive.
Enjoyment of what I'm doing come through in the on-demand videos, because back then, yeah, was there some enjoyment? Of course, but I was getting so burnt out on the formula that I was doing. I'm so happy to not have to do that shit anymore.
What a dishonest piece of shit. Oh, I got kicked off of... Well, he's not saying this. This is what he should say. I got kicked off of Machinima and whatnot, and I fucked myself out of this contract that I had. But no. I was burnt out of the YouTube grind, and that's why I'm glad I became an interactive streamer. And this is why no one believes him. This is why no one takes him seriously. And this is the reason why, in a lot of ways, detractors that I feel that have more talent than myself, they need to exist. Because there's always going to be someone that, and there'll always be someone to call DSP out on his bullshit. Even if every detractor or any detractor doesn't have the lore, there's a lot of resources out there to where you can find it. And he needs to be called out. Him and any other lol cow. They need to be milked for everything that they're fucking worth. To be honest. Because that's the exact same thing he's done to people. The fact that he would have the nerve to lie to these fucking dent heads about this dumb shit and think that no one's going to call him out only because of their ignorance. Only because either they weren't around at the time or they just don't know what happened. And you can't necessarily blame someone for not knowing. But you can blame someone for continuing to be stupid. You know what I'm saying? Clearly this story does not sound right. And so if you really want to learn the truth, go out there and find it. Because it's out there. Just because he's sitting on his little $400 useless fucking chair behind those boxes that are supposed to somehow solidify his existence, right? Which is actually a terrible existence. You have a bunch of... Imagine this. I want you to really think about this for a minute. Think about what's behind him. You have a couple of pieces of pixel art that are over a decade old. You have a PS5 that you begged for. You have an Xbox. He did beg for that, by the way. You got an Xbox that you begged for. You got a fucking $100 headset that no one gives a fuck about that you begged for. You got a knockoff Street Fighter figurine and whatever else off to the side. And on these two shelves with different colored towels or blankets or whatever you want to call it, over sheets, I should say, that are hanging over it. And this is something for you to be proud of. This is what your existence is. This is what people should come by and see and try to aspire to be. Some loser that has empty boxes behind him and has the nerve to raffle off his history as if it's the truth, knowing damn well there's always going to be someone out there to call it out. What sense does that make? And look at him right here in this frame right here. How honest does he look right there? Does he carry himself like someone who is an honest individual? Does he carry himself like someone who's been crucified unjustly? Or does he come across like a scumbag who he shitted on everybody when he thought he was flying high? Then he got his wings fucking clipped. And now he's walloping in his own shit. Which one does that seem like to you? I'm not saying pigs fly. Just because you can shoot a pig out of a cannon or whatnot doesn't mean, or a catapult, if you will. It's probably, I mean, neither one is safe, but you know what I mean. Just because you can send a pig flying doesn't mean a pig can fly. And at the end of the day, that pig's going to have to come back down. And that's what happened. He thought he was so high up there that he could never come down. And he would never have to face any of the repercussions of the shit that he said or he did. And now he's got to live that shit. And he hates it. He hates every moment of it.
Listen, I get it. Back then, It was fun to make fun of Darkside Phil because he was the obstinate, stubborn asshole. He didn't want to improve. He didn't want to put out quality content. He didn't even care about putting out quality content. He just wanted to put out the stuff that made people laugh to make a buck. You're right. But I changed along the way.
Same thing that people for years called him out on, saying Phil doesn't give a shit about you. He's only doing it for profit. That's why he wants you guys to click ads and whatever. That's the reason why so many ads or so many videos are put out every fucking day, because he only cares about the money. Who the fuck are these assholes to say I do it for profit? I do it because I love it. This is my hobby and whatnot. And I don't do it for profit. What about Phil when people accused you back in the day of speeding through fucking playthroughs, right? That you weren't taking your time with it. You were purposely running through them for profit, and you said they were liars. Don't believe them. You should hunt them down and get them deplatformed because it was bullshit that they were saying, stuff like that. That right there was, he wasn't calling it slander. He just called them outright liars. And he did call for them to be harassed. He didn't have necessarily say they should be run off the platform, but he did definitely rally hate moms around them and whatnot. What about back then? Now you're sitting here saying, oh, well, yeah, I did do that. Yeah, I did only play those games for profit, and I really didn't give a shit about the playthroughs. And if that's the case, why do you even include any of that into your legacy when that makes up a large majority of your legacy? You think just because you've changed in 5 years, supposedly, that changes everything you did before that? And why would you account, yet again, why would you account any of that into your legacy? Are you fucking retarded? That's the dumbest thing ever. That's absolutely stupid. And the funny thing is you spent years lying to people saying you didn't do it, which is also part of your legacy. Yeah, so be it.
Epiphany in 2017 when I realized it was either change for the better or pack it up and get the fuck out. And I saw the light. Those first few months when I started being that interactive streamer, I was like, geez, it's so different. Now when I'm a streamer, I can play stuff more long form. I don't have to rush through the games. I can enjoy them for what they are. People want to interact with me and talk with me when I play them. It is such a different, really different situation. You know? And I love it. But now, you're absolutely right.
You need a dick. Go back here. I'll just put it out right now. Go back to 2017. SnortBucks has it. Mr. Huff Stuff has it. David Davison has it. Volt Boy has it. Soma Julius Cruz has it. I think Mighty D and Memology 101 would have it. Go back and look at his. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would have it. Well, I'm not sure about Mighty D or Memology, but David Davison, Volt Boy, SnortBucks, and Mr. Huff Stuff should definitely have it, and some OGs would definitely have it too. Go back into early 2017, leading up to the Machinima, him being dropped from Machinima. Okay, so the first couple months of 2017, that's the real reason why he left. And if you don't even want to watch that, fine. Watch up till he gets dropped from Machinima and the month or two afterwards. That's everything you need to know. This is all bullshit. Absolute fucking bullshit. He left back to Twitch because he had no choice. And like I said, he went back to Twitch in late 2016. Not 2017 like he's trying to make it sound like here. He went back to get his account activated in late 2016. And he only was going over there because, like I said, they had a bunch of different ways, new ways of making money. And he kind of fucked himself when he lost his partnership with Machinima. Because Machinima had done a bunch of slimy shit for him on his tender with them, right? Where they were allowing him to put ads on videos that he shouldn't have been able. Best example I can give you was when Nintendo, back in the day, put out the edict that no one could make money off of their content anymore. You could play their games and put it on YouTube, but you couldn't profit off it. DSP has multiple bitch fits about it. It's easy to find. Machinima still allowed him to monetize that content because he was a partner. He was a Machinima partner. And that shouldn't have been able to happen. Who knows how Machinima was able to pull that off, but they did. And that wasn't, and there's all kinds of grimy little situations where Phil had gotten copyright strikes. He shouldn't have been able to stream, and they were clearing shit up. They gave him his streaming privileges back merely a couple days after the situation, even before the strikes were even cleared up. They were able to get him streaming again before things got resolved. All kinds of nonsense. Machinima did a lot. They did a lot of dirty, slimy shit for not just Phil, for a lot of people, but they did a lot of dirty shit that he got away with that he shouldn't have. So, truth be told, that's what the real situation was. He didn't go back because he had an epiphany, because the stars aligned and he realized he was taking these people for granted. Fuck all with that. He went back because he fucked himself on Machinima, and Pig's luck, I guess, kicked in, and Twitch had a bunch of different avenues for him to make more money over there, so he went. Which is even more ironic because he called people like Angry Joe. He called him out for collecting donations and shit, even though he was making a lot of money on ad revenue. But Phil was able to go over there and do it because he talked his dumb ass out of his fucking partnership. But he talks about detractors, trolls, haters, and critics always moving the goalpost. Keep that in mind.
It becomes, instead of let's legitimately criticize Phil and make fun of him for his shortcomings, it's now let's get personal. Let's personally, on every possible level, say nasty things about him, whether they're truthful or not, to get that rise out of my audience and make a buck. That's what it's become. I appreciate das bullshit that someone like you, who maybe previously didn't like me and was part of that poke at Phil, make fun of him, turned around and now, you know, you've been a big supporter. You've been nice to me over the years. You said nice things on the streams. You supported here and there, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for that. George R.R. Miyazaki tipped me $2, says, should we release a gamer declaration of independence? We gamers shall live free from persecution in our gamer republic. That sounds really dramatic and kind of over the top, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying just because you upload a video to YouTube, it should not give everyone else on the internet free reign to literally make shit up about you. There should be protections in place, and there are absolutely none unless you have a lawyer on full-time employment ready to slap down a cease and desist at every waking moment.
It's called retainer, Phil. But it's funny how it was okay for him to shit on everybody back in the day, and it was okay. But now that he's in the dumps, now he don't have the money, now he ain't white hot popular or whatever the fucking term is that he uses. Everybody else should be scared of prosecution, not persecution. They should be scared of prosecution, and it's not right, and somebody needs to step in. Keep that in mind.
No, it's not fair. It's an unfair place. It's really fucked up. Only Iced Coffee, thanks for the super chat. There's absolutely no reason I'm even going to read that, because if I do, it's just going to cause a bunch of people to rip their hair out and go crazy. And it's just going to cause drama, and you know that, so I'm not reading that. There's absolutely no way I'm reading that. Okay.
Says right here that now that King Goken has his wrench back, can I have mine back? Paid $5 for that shit? You would think too, the way Only Iced Coffee got finessed, because you saw that in the Discord leaks. The way he and fucking Phil ain't bled his ass out to get mod ship, he would know better. But whatever, he's playing some type of 8-dimensional chess or some shit over there. Godspeed, I guess.
Legmick says, you said you didn't interact in the first 4 years of streaming. How come? Okay. By the way, Legmick, I think your membership expired right now. It did. You had the silver crown, and it disappeared between your two comments. Just so you know. Don't know if you knew that or not.
You see how he fucking called him out on that? Here, I want you to look at his face when he does this shit. Because that's just kind of scary, too. It's kind of scary how he pulled that shit. Yeah, just I was gonna increase the size of it, but he's ugly enough at this fucking ratio. Look at his face when he calls this guy out.
Legmick says, you said you didn't interact in the first 4 years of streaming. How come? Okay. By the way, Legmick, I think your membership expired right now. It did. You had the silver crown, and it disappeared between your two comments. Just so you know. Don't know if you knew that or not. Because it threw me off. Because I'm looking at him like, it's definitely the same guy, but his crown's gone. His name's not green anymore. Anyway, the first 4 years that I streamed, it was interesting because I could see the direct reactions to what was happening when I was streaming, and I liked that. But I felt like people weren't there. And in particular, there's another thing you got to remember too. I should bring this up because this is very important.
Here, let us change the story so he doesn't sound like a complete and total sociopath. I was okay with you guys talking in the comment section or in the chat, and I didn't have to say anything to you back. I was okay with that. But then, if I really wanted to make this money, I had to talk to you fucking idiot losers. So, yeah. Let's see how he spends this.
This is very important for context. At the time, 2013, when I started live streaming, live streaming was not necessarily fully monetizable. And what I mean by that is things such as cheering.
Cha-ching. Cha-ching. Let's bring that back for you. Fucking idiot. Why didn't you talk to us for the first 3 or 4 years, Phil? Oh, I couldn't make money off you cucks. Wait a second, Phil. I thought you said that the restreamers shut the fuck up your band. Defiant sniff.
This is very important for context. At the time, 2013, when I started live streaming, live streaming was not necessarily fully monetizable. And what I mean by that is things such as cheering and stuff was not actually really implemented yet. It wasn't like, oh, I could be a full-time streamer because I get subs and cheers and tip revenue and all that. It wasn't like that at all. It was more like, yes, you could live stream, and it was more about getting just the subs. And then please pledge to my Patreon or buy a product that I'm pushing on my stream. That's more what it was like back then. Okay, it's not like today, you see. And so that being said, I knew that the vast majority of any money that I was going to make to run my business was going to be on YouTube ad revenue. Because in 2013, YouTube ad revenue was still good. It wasn't until 2017 that the big adpocalypse happened and it all plummeted, and now you can't make a living just with basic videos on YouTube anymore. Okay? So I knew that even though I was live streaming at the time...
I'm not sure if you guys heard that, but let me bring it back for you. I couldn't make money on basic videos on YouTube anymore. Basic is the word I want to put the emphasis on.
That the vast majority of any money that I was going to make to run my business was going to be on YouTube ad revenue. Because in 2013, YouTube ad revenue was still good. It wasn't until 2017 that the big adpocalypse happened and it all plummeted, and now you can't make a living just with basic videos on YouTube anymore. Okay? So I knew that even though I was live streaming at the time, I had to make my main focus putting the same quality of video out for the YouTube on-demand viewer, because that's where my bread and butter was coming from. That's where my support was primarily coming from. Okay? So even though I was live streaming...
Now, keep in mind, this idiot has a business degree. And an A certification.
The audience. I would see what they were saying. It was interesting to see some of the reactions, but admittedly... yes, there were times when things didn't go well. I mean, I'm not going to bring up the specifics, but remember the infamous Kingdom Hearts finale incident and stuff like that, which I look back today and I'm like, man, what a stupid situation. If I were a different kind of content creator back then, that never would have even happened. But because I was being this kind of stupid offline content creator who was online, didn't make sense, it just set myself up for disaster in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, like, it was interesting because at first I was like, oh, this is like a whole new world of content creation. I can watch live and I can see who likes it and who's not liking it. I can see the live reaction and maybe even steer the content in one direction or another, depending on how the audience is reacting live. But at the same time, I felt like I had to directly act like they weren't there so that the on-demand viewer wouldn't feel like the content was geared just towards the live audience. A lot of the people were afraid when I became a live streamer that, man, all your content has changed now because all you do is talk to the audience constantly. You see? In fact, it was funny.
All it does is beg for money, so his YouTube videos are atrocious. Congratulations on that. But even more importantly than that bullshit, him trying to say... Because remember, we started this off as, there wasn't a bunch of ways of monetizing, so there was no incentive to me being a full-time streamer, which me being a full-time streamer entails me talking to you fucking losers so I can get your money. That's how this all started. And then he ends up spinning it, as I told you he would, to, oh, well, I needed to finesse it in such a way to where the YouTube audience still feels important because that's how I was making my bread and butter and shit. That's just fucking crazy. If this dude is not a fucking human parasite, I don't know what is. I don't know.
It was absolutely one of the criticisms I got at the time was that, Phil, we can tell that Stream Chat is just spoiling the entire game for you. Because as you're going through the game, you're doing so well, and we know that you don't do well in games. So obviously people are just telling you everything on the fly in the Stream Chat, and your content has changed. And the truth is, they weren't. And a lot of the times, no one was spoiling anything. It was just I was doing well, and people wanted an excuse why Phil sucks. So they would always say, oh, it was the Stream Chat told him to do it, the Stream Chat. But no, it wasn't. Excuse me. So I hope that's a good answer for you. Alice Telemon took me another $1.50. He says, the Street Fighter 4 content was absolutely fabulous. I felt from day one what you were doing. Talking shit as if you were in an arcade with friends or at home with a friend playing together. Calling things out, even if you knew it was bullshit. Just having great fun. Exactly right. You know what? And this is actually very truthful, too.
No.
Arcade...
When he made his claims in Street Fighter 4 about certain stuff being bullshit, certain stuff didn't require any skill or any talent, he meant it. He meant that shit. So, no, I'm not going to sit there and let him go off and say that shit was a parody. It wasn't. He actually believed that. Which is one of the things that really got his ass up and out of the FGC anyway. And this is why he says that the FGC really hates him, because he was doing Street Fighter 4 content on YouTube. He wasn't very good at it, but people thought it was entertaining, and he was getting more views than they were. What he's not telling you is when he was still trying to go to tournaments and siphoning people's tournament footage so he could profit off of it. We forgot that part. We're going to admit that part of the conversation.
Days were very different than what you have now with fighting games. Back then, it was actually just as important to be good at the game as it was to be a good shit talker. I'm not kidding. It was part of the cultural experience to deride your opponents when you played them, so that way you could mentally throw them off and beat them, because then you're the king of the cabinet and you get to keep playing while others have to step up and keep putting money in the machine. It was part of it. Today, it's all outlawed. You can't talk shit during a competitive match, but it was part of the overall experience back then. So when I'm making the content of Street Fighter 4, over a decade ago, I'm trying to bring that experience into the content that I was making and let you guys kind of see exactly how it was back in the day. Now, to some extent, it was completely unfair because it's me talking shit to someone on the other end of the internet who can't even hear me. They can't make a retort. And I knew that. It was a captive audience. It was a captive play.
No, captive audience, my ass. He just didn't want anybody to speak back to him. But since he wants to talk about how it was, the psychology of getting into someone's head, ask him about when he was on SOK talking all that shit to people, talking about how he was going to rip their fucking head off, how he was going to beat them to death and everything. And then when he showed up to the tournament, then all of a sudden he's fucking bitching out of some bathroom, or he's in the corner crying or whatever. And people like John or people like Viscant end up having to step up and shit and have to talk people down so he didn't get beat down. Think about that, all that trash talking shit that he talking about. Yes, is there a lot of trash talking that happened back in his day? Abso-fucking-lutely. At the same time, dudes who have street smarts apparently knew exactly how far to take it. When you're sitting there on a forum threatening violence on people, keep knocking on that door and someone's going to eventually answer you. And that happened to Phil a couple of times. And that don't have shit to do with fucking FGC psychology. That sounds like an asshole being an asshole and not being man enough to take the beating that was supposed to come with that. That's what that sounds like. You talk shit, you get hit. And if you're going to threaten violence on a person or a group of people, you damn sure better be ready to take everything that come with that. And he wasn't man enough to do it. Other people had to step up and go ahead and basically fight that battle for him. while he sat in the corner like a puss, like straight puss. And then a week later, he back on SRK again talking shit. Which is why no one ended up taking him seriously. You can't take a man seriously who can't stand on his own too. Hooves, feet, whatever the case may be. So it has nothing to do with trying to bring the arcade experience to you. At all. Is trash talking part of that? Sure, absolutely. What good is that if it's one-sided and you don't hear nothing back? It's the typical shit. You know what I'm saying? Congratulations that you can break a lot of bricks. Last time I checked, bricks don't hit back.
Way for them to counter what I was saying and doing, and to some extent I think that's why people liked the content. It was like, damn, Phil the Bully beating people up in Street Fighter 4 and basically talking shit the whole time, right? People enjoyed that. That was the shtick at the time, right? So, you know what I'm saying? But now things are so different. Now, if I were to make content just like that today, people would go nuts. This guy is out of his mind. What is he, a giant egotist? What is he, a fucking asshole? And you know what I mean? Like, people would go nuts to make that kind of content. I'd probably get in trouble. I'd probably get reported on fucking YouTube and have videos taken down for community guidelines for being mean. Seriously. Jay Love the Flash says, wasn't the big tournament you won lacking a lot of key players during that time? No, I didn't even win that tournament. I won many other tournaments that had key notable players in them. But the one everyone...
Like, we already talked about that. He placed highly in some of those tournaments. He didn't win all of them. And yes, there wasn't too many... There wasn't a lot of high competition there. A lot of guys pulled out. A lot of guys were playing other games and whatnot. But it don't matter, because he still got cleaned up by guys who were way above his caliber anyway. But yet he preached on it for years, talking about number one ranked North American player that year. This mug, this face right here, ran around for over a decade. Longer than that, actually. Almost 2 decades. But it was over a decade, certainly. Decade plus. Talking about he was the number one ranked North American player that year. 2005. Excuse me. This is what he preached for over a decade. This fucking loser right here preached that. And he expects all of you to take him seriously. Because if you don't take him seriously, you guys are all gullible idiots that are being taken advantage of. Womp womp.
Talks about is the one that a few key players boycotted. And the ones that were in it, I beat. So there you go. Get the story straight. Money.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
He still has pride about that, even after all, even now. No. Let's see. I want to see this.
About is the one that a few key players boycotted, and the ones that were in it, I beat. So there you go. Get the story straight.
Look how proud he is. Look how proud he is. He still he still gets a sense of pride off of a tournament that meant nothing to nobody. And he got cleaned up by people who weren't even who he got cleaned up by 3 players who weren't really even exposed to the game or didn't even really play it. And they still cleaned him up. Easy. And yet he still takes pride that he beat a bunch of people who didn't care anyway. Oh, that's so sad. Oh my god. Oh. I'd almost feel sorry for him if it wasn't so pathetic.
Money, yeah. Money. Oh, money, yeah. Money.
Alright. Big ups to holy shit. Big ups to Hate Watch. Hate Army Watch for that. Absolutely fan-fucking-tastic. Oh my god. I'm gonna play you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and play something for you guys out. Sorry. Let's just go with that, I guess. Thank you guys for coming out. I very much appreciate it. Like I said, I'm getting back into the groove of things. I'm gonna make a few more of these and whatnot. We'll just keep making them until I get back into the Snort Report. I am told that there's been some interesting developments as of today when I'm recording this. We'll see what comes out of that. Should be interesting. Fun times to be had. Thank you guys for showing up. Or for listening to the video, I should say. And I'll see you guys on the flip. Later, people. Holy shit.